Good evening. We call the Apopka City Council meeting to order. Commissioner Smith, will you give us the prayer pledge and back to the day, please, sir?
Bless from the attitude of prayer. Our fathers, once again that we come as humble servants. Come, Heavenly Father, to take up the business of this city. We ask for your continued guidance as we come to this festive part of the year to celebrate the birth of a Savior. As we give and receive gifts, let us not forget the greatest gift of all, the birth of your Son. These blessings we ask in thy Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The fact of the day. On December 21st, 1891, 30-year-old James Neesmith introduces the first game of basketball. Neesmith invented the game as a way to engage bored and unruly students cooped up during the harsh winter months. Based on 13 rules created by Neesmith, the game was tested by 18 students at the International Young Men's Christian Association training school in Springfield, Massachusetts. Two teams of 9 players each competed against each other with the objective to throw a soccer ball into a peach basket attached to the balcony 10 feet above the floor. Thus began the game of basketball. Thought of the day.
All right. Got a set of minutes in front of you. Need a motion to approve unless we need some adjustments.
I had one minor adjustment. Under the mayor's report, page 31, down at the bottom, under my remarks where it says, Commissioner Becker stated that he believes it's a waste of time. I want that qualified because I said absent the Gopher Tortoise conservation easement forfeiture, it would be a waste of time. I just want that clarity for the record.
So I guess with that note too, I for the last year, we've basically been talking about notes in general and how we write them and the depth to which we write them. And I guess I don't understand what the point of our minutes are if we're going to summarize some and give a lot of detail to others. I think it puts a lot of strain on the city clerk, their office, to kind of move forward with this. I was hoping we could kind of come to some kind of agreement of how we take notes moving forward. I feel we give a lot of detail to some spots and no detail to others. So is there a way that we can create a process, a provision, a policy moving forward of how we can shorten these or lengthen them, just make it consistent in some way? I think that's just all I'm asking is we lack consistency throughout our minutes. And I think there's possibly some editing going on after meetings, things like that, which is I'm okay with. But as long as I just think if we have a policy that creates a rubric of how we do these, I think that will, number one, shorten our packets. Number two, just make it a little more concise moving forward. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I think that would be advantageous moving forward.
Well, I'm looking for direction. I mean, I'm sure the clerk will do whatever you ask.
Well, I mean, I'm asking you guys. What do you guys feel, Mr. Mayor? What do you feel? I'm the junior up here.
I mean, I think where we try to get in more detail is where there is some more than just routine comments. If it's something that we're getting into the weeds on something and we've got some dialogue going between either the public or us here on the dais, I think we try to do a little more detailed, dive into that. Whereas if it's just routine kind of things, we try to stay out of it. Public comment, we're if there's not something that we need to fix or something we need to do or process we need to work on, we try to stay light on the public comments unless there's, obviously if it's during a public hearing about a roadway or, the height of the building or whatever, we want to make sure those comments are included. But whatever you'd like, we're more than willing to, I'm with you, which I want to try to shorten it where we can, but obviously where those issues that are important and that there's some diversion from public, common goals or common good, then I think we want to try to keep those parts of the minutes in. But
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer them to be exhaustive, because, you know, people are, it's depending on the channel in which they look at these city council meetings, whether it's on YouTube, attending in person, or if they just use minutes. Yeah, I think it should be exhaustive to the point that people understand the spirit of the conversation, both sides. But I think you made a point that's valid, is my understanding, and if we don't have the policy stated as such, it needs to be. But I would think that the minutes creation is, the scribing of those minutes is the sole responsibility of our city clerk and the city clerk's office, and should not be subject to any revisions or truncation or modification prior to the city council looking at it in a formal state, i.e. this meeting this right now. And if that editing, so to speak, is happening before this meeting, I think that our policy should be clearly state that that should not occur. It should be this body that determines whether or not it's subject to final record. If we don't have that policy, then I'd say that we draft it and look at it and, you know, and approve it.
And it's my understanding we don't have any type of policy like that. So I guess we can come up with something. That would be my ask, is if you guys would all be willing to agree to something along those lines, just create a policy. And if you do want it exhaustive, I mean, there is transcription apps out there, or things that we can put in place.
As a matter of exhaustive, I think like on page 29, under city council reports, mayor's report, I think that would be my definition of this exhaustive. Like under the public comment where some of the individuals have spoken, where it's, you know, 3 or 4 lines of text, that's not as exhaustive to me versus what's within the report section of the minutes. I think getting to that level is appropriate.
Well, I think then let's within the next couple of meetings, let's make sure that we do have a policy that is either brought to us or agreed upon up here. And then additionally, let's look into kind of exhaustive software that can save the city clerk's time a little bit and kind of refine this process moving forward. If you guys are all agreeable to that.
I'll have. I'm
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
let's be mindful as to how we do that, because remember, our residents have asked when they make public comment, they want their comments in the minutes.
Well, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, yeah, no, so by exhaust, I mean, it's recording everything and then hopefully transcribing every detail of everything. We may need just, the software may not pick up certain periods where they need to be, or commas, but yeah, no, it'll be much longer. So yeah, definitely detailed. And then from there, we can all review together at the same time, make sure we're comfortable that the software has transcribed it correctly, make sure nothing is out of the ordinary, and then we can approve it from there. So that'd be my ask for sure.
Okay.
I know we don't have a software. I mean, it's manually kind of transcribed by the clerk and the assistant upstairs. It can be very time-consuming.
That it is, but.
So it would be probably advantageous to probably look into a software program, which would free up a lot of time for the city clerk's office.
Well, we use 365, right? I mean, that's native to Microsoft at this point. I mean, if you're on a Teams meeting and hit the CC option, closed caption, it automatically scribes it, and it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, so currently, our system's not 100% functional in here. We do have closed captioning that we're going to natively inject into all of our video. I have an actual copy of audio from every meeting that doesn't get touched, so it's pure audio. I have the video also going out to YouTube, which is captioned if you turn that on. And then, of course, she's doing the minutes. As you mentioned, Teams could potentially do that, but I think we should be in a better position once we actually turn on our captioning, because the YouTube, we're kind of relying on theirs. And, my name has a whole different connotation. My last name comes up a little bit different. So what you're saying is not 100% every time, but we do have captioning software that we should be able to get here hopefully within the next month or so once we get our last remaining hardware.
So you think in 6 weeks, so could we say maybe the first meeting of February?
I would like to say I would have everything in then, but I've been waiting for some of this stuff for the last 3 months. So we can try turning it on and go from there and see if that's doing it.
Okay.
But we can also look at other avenues of getting it and making sure it's verbatim so that she's not having to type it out.
Okay. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's great. And then like in
We
that
can
time,
also we can pull it from YouTube, just the audio portion of it. So that's another way of doing it. But again, if it misunderstands what you say or it doesn't hear you, you're going to be like, I didn't say that. So that's the problem with that. So we keep a clean copy, audio only, if necessary to go back, which she actually uses to actually create the notes. and we have the online portion as well. So we
Okay.
can always go back if we need
Perfect.
to.
And then in that time frame, I mean, let's kind of go through what a SOP or process for this, and just so that we're all on the same page, the residents have the same understanding that we do, that staff does, and all that. So I think that'll be very advantageous.
Okay. All right, need a motion to approve the minutes with the suggested changes.
So moved.
Got a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Lorena Potter, come on up. Tell us about the Foliage Sertoma Club Parade Award winners.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for allowing me to be here tonight to present the parade awards. This was our 46th annual parade, put together by the Sertoma Club and, of course, co-sponsored by the City of Apopka. We appreciate all the support from the city, from the administration to the recreation department, the police, fire, streets and grounds. It definitely takes a large team to put on something like the Christmas parade. We really appreciate the support that we get from the city and also from the community, from the organizations and the businesses that enter, and also all the spectators that come out and enjoy the parade. So I am honored to award this year's winners. And I'm going to start with the best band, which was for the second year in a row, the Apopka Blue Darter Band.
I'm glad he was winning an award. He was supposed to be able to play at the state championship last weekend. I know. They didn't allow him during the lightning. Yeah, the lightning delay cost him a chance to play before the crowd down there in Fort Lauderdale. But
Okay, next I would like to give the award for the best of theme. And our theme this year was a festive Florida Christmas. And we saw a lot of creative entries, but the winning entry for best theme was the Apopka Elks Club. Another favorite of the crowd and a new entry this year won most creative, and that was Old Kinderhook Glass.
yeah.
And I think this was second year in a row for best float, goes to King's Landing Adventures. I don't see them here this evening. Best marching and performing goes to MGA Gymnastics. And I'm not sure if they're here this evening, but you could not miss them in the parade. They had several large vehicles. Our special recognition goes to J&J Tree Services. Okay, that's all I have, and thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you all on the second Saturday of December.
We're gonna come down and get a
You're
picture
gonna do a
with you.
picture?
Yes.
Short people in front, so I'll stay in the back.
Next up, we got our Apopka Pop Warner 14U National Championship team. You guys stand up. Winning is a tradition in Apopka, that's for sure. Is the coach here? Coach? Yeah, come on down and give us a little rundown on how you got to the title game.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having us. I'd like to present to you 2022 14U National Champions.
Yeah. All right, who's the team captain who wants to come down and say a couple of words? Maybe not?
Come on, Jade. Speak from the heart.
Speak from the heart.
How about you tell us who'd you play and what was the final score? Just tell us some details about the game.
I don't remember the final score, but it was close. That's all, no, it was close. It was close. It was very scary, you know. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be in that position again, to be honest.
That's awesome.
But, you know, it was a good game, you know, one of the best games I played and, you know, one of the best games we played. So that's really all I can say.
Thank you. All right. Y'all come on down. We'll get a picture with everybody. Come on down.
Score was 20-16. We played Deer Valley and we won.
Hey, fellas, everybody y'all get down.
I'm good to not be seen. Congrats, guys. Bring home a
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Merry Christmas.
You didn't bring the hardware. Coach, you didn't bring the hardware. No, I mean the big. Come. All right, you betcha, man.
Coach Jeff. That's who it was.
Well, well, speaking of winning traditions, this Apopka bowling team is, boy, what you can't get any more award-winning than our Apopka bowling team. I was just reading through their state championship, and it says Apopka is now the only boys bowling program in Florida to claim 6 team championships. Next highest is 2. Sweep the boys competition, sweep the boys competition 3 times in total, have more than 1 individual state champion, have 4 entries claiming state individual championships, have bowlers claiming team and individual state championships at the same state championship meet. What an amazing record for the Apopka bowling team. So come on up, Coach. Give us the rundown. Anybody want to come up and speak? Come on. Come on, Coach.
As you may know, I've been here many times. I can't say enough that they went undefeated this year. We had the last 6 years undefeated for districts, so they're district champs. To say that they've won 6 state championships is just unbelievable that I've been part of it. This year we had an individual. We had the 4 make it to individuals, and we had 1 that won first place. So that's the 3rd state individual championship we've had. We've also had 1 national championship. So they will compete this year in Ohio. It's this year in Ohio for a national championship.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I can't say enough. They've all done. It's hard to believe. I wish I could bowl like these guys. I think out of the top 5 bowlers, the lowest average was 223 for the season.
Wow. Wow.
And Jeremy Walker had, I forget, what was it, Jeremy, 235? 239 for the season.
Jeez.
So, but it's really a feat that I don't know that we can't say enough about. So I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you. Anybody on the team want to come up? Come on, Richard. It's all good. It's all good. Come on. You don't need a bowling ball to be able to talk in front of the mic.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Now, I heard you had to come back into the losers bracket to win. Did you?
I was knocked into the losers bracket, but then climbed the losers bracket up to win.
So
It was- I don't know.
Now, when is the national championship?
It should be June? It should
June.
middle of June, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Good.
For next
Good
year.
luck.
And
Awesome.
you'll be competing for that, the national?
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Congratulations. Coach Jenkins, you big. See, Coach.
Did the other usher check your ticket? You were back there before.
All right. Agenda review, Edward?
No changes, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Public comment, Susan?
We didn't do the consent agenda.
Dennis New, 105 West Magnolia. I've been told at times when I come here that I might talk too sternly when I'm here, that my point might be missed and people are turned off by my presentation. That's unfortunate, as I only speak the truth and sometimes I'm passionate about the subject, and that might lead to my tone. Tonight's one of those subjects, so I'm going to try a different approach. I'm going to give, and I've already placed them up there, each one of you some material to review. That material is a review of a Baltimore firefighter line of duty death by their safety committee. The Apopka Fire Department and its firefighters, or should I say our firefighters, is what I want to talk to you about tonight. I've seen on social media and some news outlets that the Fire Department Safety Committee is not going to investigate the accident involving Austin Duran. I've also heard that firefighters are resigning from the committee because of this, and that they feel there's not a full commitment from the city for the accident committee itself. I've made a copy for each of you and the city manager of a properly completed investigation into the recent deaths of firefighters. This was done in Maryland. There's no state law there that requires a safety committee be in place, and this safety committee was convened within 2 weeks of the accident, and they compiled this report. The results of the report caused a lot of people in the department to resign because the fault was theirs. Austin's accident happened on June 30th, 174 days ago, and nothing has happened within the city's own safety committee. Not one person has been held accountable. As a matter of fact, all the people involved, including the mayor, have received the largest pay raises the city allows. I'm guessing that's for a job well done. Now I'm hearing the safety committee may not have the expertise to investigate it. Did we just realize this? It took 174 days to understand it. How can I get a copy of the letter that Mr. Wylam had read to the committee? My understanding, the committee members asked for it, but were not allowed to have a copy. It seems strange. Please take time to study the Baltimore report. The committee is made up of all fire department members of various ranks. This is how line of duty deaths are investigated. Who knows more about a firefighter's equipment, their training, and the firefighters? That's who. Because the city attorney has injected himself into the safety committee, I'm wondering, does he know that the Florida statute requires that there be a safety committee? My question is, where was the safety committee prior to firefighter Austin's accident? That's where they get their expertise to conduct the line of duty death from all the small accidents. If the accusation is true that the safety committee does not have the proper investigative skills on their board, how is it that they've been placing blame on accidents on people and docking their pay? Commissioners, I beg you to take a deep dive into this situation. As usual, there seems to be some behind-the-scenes activities that doesn't pass the transparency test. The City Hall administration and the Fire Department administration can't have it both ways. What are they hiding? The citizens, the firefighters, and most importantly, the Duran family deserve a full investigation, full transparency, and most importantly, they deserve full cooperation from our administration. Baltimore did their investigation because of 3 firefighters that died. All of the members of their safety committee had worked on previous safety investigations. The safety committee should be in place now, and they should be investigating every accident report that comes down. If a firefighter slips in the bay, they should investigate it. That's what gives them the experience for the big investigation. What happened before Austin's accident is a shame. Where was the training? Where was the safety? Where was the leadership?
Ace Wooden?
Ace Woodham, 47 East Magnolia Street, Apopka, Florida. I'm here tonight to address the safety issues with the fire department also. I spoke with Mayor Nelson 3 years ago about the safety of these firefighters as soon as he appointed Sean Wylam as fire chief. He said he had the same concerns. These concerns have not been addressed. 36 months, at least. A young man lost his life because of negligence, because someone couldn't stand up and do their job properly. I'm asking you commissioners tonight to look at this. You got a gentleman, his daughter and his wife in here tonight that's lost a son, a loved one. He needs to be put to rest. He can't rest with y'all saying, it ain't our fault, it ain't our fault. It is your fault. Mayor Nelson, you appointed a man that wasn't qualified to be a fire chief. He's a good firefighter, but he's not administrative personnel. And he needs to be removed immediately and put someone that's capable of protecting these firefighters that come to work at 8 o'clock every morning to protect us. They need to be able to go home to their family just like you do. And y'all are the only ones that can put an end to this mess. These guys, these women are professional firefighters. They deserve your attention. They deserve your assistance. They should be able to come to you and not be ridiculed for not knowing. Austin's letter a year or so before he ever had the accident pinpointed it. Even a rookie firefighter knew there was some issues. I'm not saying Sean's a bad guy, but he don't make good decisions as a leader in the fire department.
Albert McKimmie, 3603 Golden Gem Road, Apopka. At the last meeting, Mr. Hitt confirmed the following figures. Planned development was expected to be a maximum 500 to 600 homes per year, and their projection was based on a 5-year cycle. So in any 5-year cycle, they would predict a maximum of 3,000 new homes. However, currently there is planned development of 3,500 homes on Golden Gem Road alone. Mr. Hitt further confirmed that as of March 22, there were 9,900 homes developed under construction or in the process of application. That's a 330% increase on their maximum projected 3,000 homes for the 5-year cycle. Is it any wonder that our infrastructure is in chaos with such radical deviations? Currently, Florida is stated to have 4 of the largest growing cities in the United States. That does not include Apopka. Average growth in these nominated cities is about 20%. Apopka in 2021 had 55,000 people recorded on their census. Add only an average of 3 people per home to those 9,900 homes, we increase the population by 29,700. That growth is over 53% that the city is involved in. If that does not ring alarm bells, then consider that number is incomplete, because the county are also involved in development in Apopka. Potentially 2 developments of the same street could be being overseen by 2 separate entities who would appear to have little communication but required to use the same roads and schools. Even more chaos ensues. Because of the lack of school places, will our children have to be bused to nearby schools or be housed in temporary buildings? I would like to know what the result of these combined figures for the county and the city are. I would like to know how many more homes have been added to the development since March of 2022 for a year-end figure. I would like to know at what point our commissioners will determine that this proliferation of uncontrolled development is out with their comfort zone, and at what point they will support a moratorium. I would like to know when will we have a complete, comprehensive plan in place for our schools and our roads, not short-term fixes that are based on flawed studies and models. There are many things I would like to know, but 4 minutes is insufficient time for me to ask where the integrity of this administration is gone. Shady property meetings, shady deals, shady cover-ups into fatalities. It's time for our community to become accountable. I'm not going to ask the mayor for answers because I know his stock answer. We'll get back to you. So tonight, I'm going to ask the commissioners, at your convenience, will you share with us your thoughts on the state of affairs in Apopka and a public statement with respect to development? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynetta Johnson, 255 Lancer Oak, 32712. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to start off by saying the annexation meeting on 11/29/22 was a great fact-finding meeting. However, the council leadership, in my opinion, should have concluded the meeting with an apology to the folks that live on the south side of Apopka on behalf of the city of Apopka's long-standing stance of disparate treatment of African Americans, along with a tentative follow-up meeting in 2023. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, Mr. Bell, Mr. Hall, for sharing your experience and knowledge of disparate treatment in South Apopka. This summer, Commissioner Becker and I spoke at the campaign forum this year, and the topic of One Apopka was asked. I expressed solidarity in having One Apopka and brought forth ideas of an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement, should One Apopka occur, along with a strategic forecast of migration of the south side of Apopka. During the forum, I spoke on my own occurrences of racism while living in Altamont Springs and was very aware of the racism in Apopka as I used to come to Apopka as a teenager in the 80s. To caveat my point, the PowerPoint shown in the annexation meeting illustrated the startup costs associated with annexation. However, it failed an explanation of migration based on hierarchy of needs. If annexation is to move forward, not all will happen at once. Allow me to share with you some pointers on how other municipalities in the United States and abroad have addressed racism. On the 16th of June of this year, Boston City Council unanimously approved a resolution for apologizing for the city's role in the transatlantic slave trade. The Councilor Fernandez Anderson, who proposed the resolution, said that the vote that a formal apology represents an opening salvo as the city looks to address the harms that caused by slavery. Another city, Glendale, California, has a history of excluding African Americans that go back to the 1930s. On October 13th, 2020, Glendale City Council has responded with a promise to address racial bias in the city, starting with unanimously passing a resolution apologizing for condemning its history as a sundown town. Glendale City Councilman, Mr. Brotman, says that while the resolution is mostly symbolic, it's a first step toward creating a more equitable city. Henceforth, take note, City of Apopka. On June 19, 2018, Charleston, South Carolina, port city where about 40% of enslaved Africans were brought to North America landed after being taken from their homelands, has become the latest city to apologize for its role in the slave trade. Allow me to share. I am a United States Air Force veteran. I'm not a natural-born citizen. I was born and partially raised in Germany. I was very aware of the disparate treatment of genocide of the Jewish people. How? Well, I listened to my grandfather. He was an SS officer in the Third Reich. How? I listened to the stories. He spoke with remorse and embarrassment. After the fall of the Third Reich, the Democratic Republic of Germany has decided to remove all historical artifacts related to Adolf Hitler and replace the history of Hitler with their version of CRT, critical race theory. To know better is to be better. I want to say at the last meeting at Annexation, there was a statement that there was no representation from South Apopka. I'd like to say that's incorrect. There were a lot of people that work in South Apopka, that have family in South Apopka, that work with the children in the churches. So they may not have been the people that lived there, but they were the voices that spoke for them. You have to imagine if you've been treated poorly all of your life, the majority of your life, you know, it's like a dog. You kick a dog is not going to come to you. So you have to take that note. Commissioner Smith, I'm sorry. You poured your heart out. Mr. Bell, Mr. Hall, I'm sorry. Let me be the first to say, I know what it's like to be having racism, disparate treatment, and it's not fair.
Thank you.
To know better is to do better. Thank you.
Okay, Alex Robinson.
Good evening. My name is Alex Robinson. I live at 1997 Middle Crest Drive in Apopka, Florida. I come tonight addressing Rogers Road. I addressed this situation almost 4 months ago, and I know the city is doing a fantastic job, doing the best job you can to handle this situation. But I desperately need you guys to put some sidewalks there. It's one thing when it happened to someone else, but I was driving down the street personally, and you cannot see anyone when they come over the hump. And I was going less than the miles, 35 miles an hour. I made it my business to go there. And I almost hit a lady pushing her baby in a carriage. It would have been so sad to me that I would have hit them. And I'm begging you to please put sidewalks on the side. I know we addressed this 4 months ago, and I think I spoke to Mrs. Pam, who's head of
She's on the back row.
who's head of planning. And we keep talking and putting it off. And she said that it's not people who want to do the work. But I understand that. But in 4 months, we haven't got anybody who can do the sidewalks. You know, I'm a veteran and I have to use a scooter. I hurt my leg in the service. And I can't even go around the corner. I can't even take that road. But if you drive the back way, and they just added like 300 houses back there. So you can imagine the traffic that's going back there, that mom and that dad who should be going the speed limit, but they're going, trying to get to work and come out of the subdivision fast. It's happened to all of us trying to get someplace. And you cannot see the person at all at the top of that hill. And if you're driving, you can't see the person at the bottom of the hill. And there's no place for them to walk but to walk in the road. I beg of you to desperately put some sidewalks in there. And I'm going to be calling and just calling, but I'm never rude. I want to be the gentleman that I am, because I realize that whoever's putting the sidewalks in also has another boss that they have to answer to, and they have to look at the budget. But this is a new year now as far as finance. So I know they have the money, but I desperately am asking you to put the sidewalks in. And just like I'm coming to you now, asking for the sidewalks, when you put the sidewalks in, I'll come back and praise you and tell you thank you. Because it's just not for me, but it's for almost 600 houses that's using that road. Not to mention that there's a church there on the corner. So I appreciate all that you're doing, but I'm begging you, please, please put a sidewalk in before someone lose their lives. And then we will all be sorry. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thanks for coming.
tonight.
Appreciate it.
And I thank you for the job that you are doing here in Apopka, because I still love this city. I believe it's the best city in the world. So continue doing what you're doing, and can you please put a sidewalk in?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What's the action on that one? So Pam, did you say you've talked to Mr. Robbins?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's going to be the first one that we do in this fiscal year. We're getting our list together, and I did find 2 contractors. That was part of the problem, the cost of the job and our procurement rules. So I found 2 contractors, and after the first of the year, we're going to get it scheduled. The thing in question is, I think we can just go out there and lay it out and construct it, but we may have to do a little design work. But it's the first one. It's been on our list for 2 years, but we're doing it this year.
Do we have to work with Orange County on that? Because that's a county road, correct?
No.
No, that's one of those 50% roads, and we crossed the 50% threshold. It's 100% ours.
Good. Then we have control.
Yeah, we
I like
don't
that.
have to ask them.
Okay, good.
So just one more question, because I know that road that he's talking about, and I do remember when you came here 4 months ago. Lights,
We put.
is that part of, are we going to be putting
We-
lights on that road?
We put what we could out there. If I recall correctly, when I talked to our Duke guy, Jerry Rooks, the problem with the lights out there is there's not the right kind of infrastructure. It's that where we can just go out there and hang lights. We have to have infrastructure installed, which makes it kind of expensive. And it's on the list of other projects that we're going to do. I agree. There's a lighting issue, but we have them in several places, and we have to get in line for Duke to come out and do the work.
So just,
We put up 2, yeah. And I
You
know
put
we
up
put
2?
one at Leicester, but I agree, it's not enough.
so when we start the sidewalk, is there any way to kind of incorporate where we feel we may need lights?
We're at Duke Energy's mercy. They first have to come out and design it, and then they have to calculate a fee for us to pay. And they're going to have to bring the right kind of electricity in there. Just because you see power lines sometimes, it doesn't mean it's the right thing where they can just go out and hang a light. I can't remember specifically on Rogers what we have there, but I do know we've had conversations, and it wasn't something that we could just simply do by hanging an arm with an LED. So we're trying to get all the streets done.
Do you have like a ballpark cost of what it would be to put lights there?
Again, it depends on what if we just had to hang an arm, it would cost us nothing. It would just be the $6 or something a month to pay the electric bill. If they have to bring power in, which means a transformer and all that stuff, it could be $100,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pam.
Okay, thanks.
Next up.
Sylvester Hall?
Sylvester Hall, 3091 Rolling Hills Lane, Apopka. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. How everybody doing? I bring holiday greetings, cheers. I was taking my family cruise, and I got a text that the mayor and a group was having a secret meeting about Rock Springs Ridge, the golf course. I'm gonna be short on this because just about every meeting this year I have been in attendance at City Hall. I think I only missed 2. One on another cruise, and the other one I caught the flu. I sit back, I watch, and I analyze things. My perspective on the golf course, the average home in Rock Springs Ridge is about I would say a $500,000. And so the bottom line is
we putting up a front really of where we want to go at. And where we want to go at, the golf group would love to build homes on those golf courses, period. We're trying to find a bike way to do that. And that's what you're trying to do. Now, I could be wrong, but the future will prove me right or wrong. Right now, you can only build 17 homes. But I know somebody's looking forward to building over 300 homes on there. So, Mayor, if you can tell me I'm wrong, I would greatly like to hear that from the record books, but the future will dictate that. I just attended Pastor Warren's funeral today. It was about 4 hours. So my heart is heavy. But when I sit back and the word came up, servant, that's what you all five raised your right hand and sworn that you would serve the people. Not yourself, not self-interest, but you would serve the people. Mayor, as a human being, I love you because my God and my soul and my spirit tells me to love everybody, love thyself, love thy neighbor. But your ways, your leadership, your ways is not what the city of Apopka needs. Everything that's been going on, I just listened to the press conference. I got a father here. I listened to all the guys with the fire department, and I have voiced my opinions on that. Sir, today I'm gonna pray for you. I'm gonna pray that God change your heart, God change your soul, and God change your spirit. And when I pray for you, I'm gonna pray for myself to try to be a better individual, better neighbor, and a better father, and a better husband for myself. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Is that it?
Michael Duran, 11504 Hamel Court, Clearmont, Florida. I came here tonight with a different idea of how to address you guys and to express my disappointment of what's still going on with our fire department. I wanted to touch on things as far as culture, getting to the root of what really needs to be changed. And responsibility, accountability, and transparency is key factors. The fact that we had 2 senior firefighters resign from the Austin Duran Safety Initiative should be alarming to all of us. We were so shocked with the accident of Austin and we didn't see it coming. You should see it now. I wanted to kind of work on that and talk about that and see if we can, as our family and the family inside the fire department, can persuade you guys to look into what is actually going on and not what you just talked about. And instead of doing that, I wanted to address the mayor and his press release. And I won't speak for the rest of my family, but I'm sure they would agree that I was highly offended by your statements and the bragging rights that it appears that you are taking. To boast about hiring a training chief and a health and safety chief and 18 firefighters, the city would not have done that unless this incident with Austin. I understand if somebody asks you, what are we doing? And we're bringing 18 firefighters in. We got a training officer and a health and safety officer, and we explain what we're doing. But we have no bragging rights. It is absolutely pathetic that it took the life of my son to get that done. So let's not brag about that. This is progress that we're making, but it still isn't enough. We had 2 senior firefighters that have left the safety committee. You talked about the state fire marshal's report, and again, you bragged that there were 8 points that the city could be graded on, and that we only filled 1. Hooray for Apopka. I hope you're very proud of that we only filled 1. And that one was training. And that's why my son is dead, because he was not trained on that. And you don't elaborate. You just said, and you shrugged your shoulders when asked by another reporter, can you elaborate on the training? And you just said, training. That's it? Let me help you. I have the State Fire Marshal's report. And yet, it was training. Training of the employees on operation procedures of vehicles and equipment. SOPs on proper use of equipment, used for fire department operations. Evaluate purpose of safety procedures and all equipment prior to placing in service. Safety compliances. And yes, you did get a notice of violation. You minimize what happened, and it was just training. Instead, you focused on what the city was doing to further the fire department, not what the fire department has been pushing for and what our family has been pushing for. And I find it highly offensive that you took that direction. Everything that has happened, and I promise you, will continue to happen. It will be because we continue to push for these changes. And I'm not quite sure why it is that I live in Claremont and our family that has suffered this loss, why is it that we have to continue to come to these meetings and speak to you and the public to make some solidified changes? It happens now. We're not going away. I assure you of that. I promise you, we're not going anywhere until we get somebody to take responsibility and accountability. We are here to stay. So let's do it.
So I'm going to take the opportunity to get an answer or a question answered that was not answered during the press release. Was the Fire Safety Committee instructed to cease their post-critique incident investigation? Yes or no?
I didn't tell anybody anything. I mean,
So there's stuff going around in the public realm, and we don't need to name names on this, but certain members of the fire department made a very clear representation that there was guidance from the fire chief and or the city attorney to stand down on the post-incident critique. Is that false or is that true?
Michael, you want to?
On behalf of the city attorney's office, I'm not going to elaborate as to any type of legal discussions that I had with staff concerning what is a legal matter, especially in relation to the filing of a notice of action by the Duran estate against the city of Apopka. I did not direct the safety committee to do anything. I have told this council before that as city attorney, I do not have the authority, nor shall I ever exercise the authority to direct staff to do anything. My role, my position, is to counsel the department on legal matters. And that's what was done. The department came to me and asked for legal counsel, and I provided legal counsel. And I advised the department that at the end, it is the department's chief, as his authority, under the safety committee, to decide one way or another. But any assertions that the city attorney directed anybody to do something is patently false.
Okay. So Chief Wylam, did you instruct the Fire Safety Committee to cease their post-incident critique regarding Austin Duran? I would appreciate a response.
Sean Wylam, Fire Chief, Apopka Fire Department. After consulting with our attorney, I came to the conclusion that it's the best at this time to postpone the post-incident critique. It's not that it's not going to happen at some point, just based on the legal matter that's ahead of us, I thought that was best for the department.
So when we say legal matters, and obviously I know the outcomes of legal matters, it's, when we say it, when we say risk, it's financial risk. But there's state law that, obviously provides guidance on safety committees and how they're run and who should be on them.
Yes.
Are we not putting ourselves at greater risk of an incident happen to the next Austin Duran? Have we not suffered enough
I think
findings that could come as a result of what you're exploring? Because we don't know what we won't, I say the fire safety committee doesn't know what they won't discover during a post-incident critique that could save the lives of the next Apopka firefighter.
I think there's a misunderstanding of the safety committee's role and what a post-incident critique actually is. When we look at an investigation of an incident, that's something that comes in and takes place even outside of this situation. We have an accident that happens, a fire truck hits another vehicle. We as the fire department don't investigate that accident. Post-incident critique takes place after a significant event or something like that of the operation after that incident. So when we talk about the post-incident critique, believe me, I want that to happen. That's going to happen in time. But it's going to look at the operation itself, not the incident. The incident's being was investigated by the state fire marshal. The incident's being investigated by a NIOSH, who are subject matter experts in this matter. We hired a third party, Gannon, who's looking at the holistic approach of our entire department, not just the incident itself, but is tied in to Austin's incident because a lot of that stuff's going to be forthcoming. But a post-incident critique will not dive into the incident itself. It's going to look at the operation. So
why were the members of the fire safety committee under the impression that it was? And why did it take this long for that directive to work its way down to the committee members?
We were
themselves?
planning on doing the post-incident critique almost immediately. That was something that was coming.
So what has
forward.
changed since the initial
We were
inception?
advised by legal counsel that.
So we're putting ourselves at potential risk by not doing an investigation of internal processes from the safety committee that could uncover potential areas for improvement. If the state fire marshal, and if we can argue on point, but let's just say that they found one in their report, and those are people outside of our particular agency, we have more intimate knowledge about our own processes and procedures, our equipment, our people, our resources, for them to be told to stand down. I'm just curious. Do you have the order, a written record of you telling the safety committee that they should stop this?
No, I don't have. No, it was a.
So
just something.
how was that communicated, and how do we get a
through
record?
the chair?
Excuse me?
Through the chair of the safety committee.
Okay, but that was a directive
Manning.
from you to the chair of the safety committee? And you don't, from my understanding, a record was written or read aloud. So I'm assuming they didn't cite it from memory through conversation. Do you have a written record of what you wanted your safety committee person to communicate?
And see if we can, yeah, I can see if we can find it.
Another question as it relates, and again, it's unfortunate that we find out as commission a lot of this stuff through social media channels, what this, that, and the other. So it's my understanding that we got, and this question is for Mr. Bass, not you, so I think I'm okay. But Mr. Bass, we received the report on September 8th, of course, according to the press release that was distributed by the mayor today. The performance review for Chief Wylam was conducted and signed in November. Why is it that if we have a pretty major finding of deficiencies in terms of training that could potentially have led to the death of Mr. Duran, why would he receive a perfect performance review, touting his hiring of a safety officer, touting the hiring of 18 firefighters, and to Mr. Duran's point that he just made, which was a valid one, neither the chief nor the mayor nor you brought forth in the budget those 18 firefighters. It took the actions of those who resigned from the safety committee to come up here and advocate. It took Mr. Duran to come up here and advocate. It took the courage of the commissioners, excluding me because I wasn't on this council at the time, the courage of Commissioner Velasquez, Commissioner Smith, and Commissioner Nesta to say, we're not going to tolerate this. We're going to hire these firefighters. So I'm just curious as to what what does that say for us if we're awarding our chief, who has some pretty major findings and some findings that are yet to be determined, a perfect score in his performance evaluation?
Commissioner, at that time, when you recall during his evaluation period, we had budget hearings. He implemented those safety initiatives based on incidents that had happened, things that have happened. He hired those positions. He instituted the safety committee. He put those plans together. So his performance in that period was he performed those functions or duties that he was to perform as the chief. Will we be watching in the future as he? Yes, we're watching right now as he brings this forward to you, as he moves through this process with the safety committee, with these reports that are coming back in this up and coming period. Absolutely, that will be in his next review period. But
yeah, I'm curious as to the chain of command here. I mean, this press conference that we had earlier today was, in my opinion, just completely the line of questioning after the fact. There was, I think, 2 or 3 times a pointed question made of whether or not the fire safety committee was told to stop their investigation. And there was a call for a yes or no answer multiple times, and each time it was met with a non-response, a non-binary response. I just point blank asked the mayor about it, and he didn't know. So I asked the attorney, and it wasn't his call. It was Chief Wylam with consultation with our attorney. How does the right hand not know what the left hand is doing or how to answer on these things? I mean, if you call a formal press conference with members of the news media, which I looked at the 6 o'clock show, and gosh, I hope they look at this a little bit further than what they talked about at 6 o'clock, because if anything, we've got to get this right. We have a grieving family. We have a city that's on the headline news because we can't get our crap together. And we're awarding our chief perfect performance reviews when there's findings of fact. I don't care if it was a budget year or it was a couple days after the fact, but if we put ink on paper, signed November, and we get this report back in September when there's wild deficiencies within this department, we've got some work to do. And at the end of the day, regardless of what financial outcome comes as a result of pending litigation, future litigation, I don't know if there's an actual case out there. I don't know the particulars of notice of claim. I'm not an attorney. I'm sure there's relevance there and precedence. But money can't be the driving factor of the actions that we take in the hyper short term on this matter. It's all about saving the next life of an Apopka firefighter. So my recommendation or my desire would be to reinstate the post-incident critique. I mean, unless there's some sort of implication that I'm not aware of, if the money factor is so far outweighs the potential to save further lives, make that argument to me, but I'm not going to buy into it. We've got to save the lives of the people that depend on us as the decision makers here in the city of Apopka to do that for them. So I would say, barring any kind of, and I don't know if this requires executive session, I don't know, in terms of talking about pending litigation outside of the open forum, but I don't see why we would not explore the continuation of the post-incident critique, because we are the closest to it. Our people are the closest to it. We've got to do whatever it takes to find out, to protect our people. So that's all I have.
Well, and I want to comment on this too. I'm tired of being embarrassed as a city from how we're dealing with the issues we're dealing with. The press conference today and the fact that we're getting this after the press did is embarrassing. How you talked about Austin Duran during that press conference, I feel was disgusting. And the fact, and to kind of piggyback on Commissioner Becker, the fact that we're putting money, any sum of money above lives, it blows my mind. We are here as a council, as a committee, as a city to promote health and safety of our people, staff, residents, visitors. To be putting a lawsuit, pending litigation above an investigation that could save anybody, anything at any time, anywhere in the future, it's disgusting. It makes me sick to be up here. It's embarrassing to be called a commissioner when we have to represent that we can't do an investigation into this because there's pending litigation. It's disgusting, and that's all I can say about it. We need to change. To echo the same sentiment, this can't continue. As a board, as a commission, as a council, this needs to change. We need to figure out how to move on from this and actually lead and not just be reactive to what's going on in our surroundings.
Attorney Rodriguez, as I was listening to our chief, he responded that his decision was made after consultation with you. You did not direct him to do so, but after he made that decision, do you think the decision he made was the right one?
It's very difficult to discuss potential litigation strategies and other legal matters without this being done in executive session. I will not go into potential litigation strategies and potential litigation issues. One, because this matter is related to a notice of claim. Such a notice of claim is then run through our risk management department and then goes through our insurer. The most I will state is that any further meetings, any further discussions, any further issues relating to potential litigation without having our proper counsel involved and informed, I think is irresponsible and reckless in regards to the legal interests and the potential legal defenses of the city of Apopka. And it is for that reason that I provided the counsel to the fire department that these are issues that we need to address and need to be concerned with. I did not direct them to stop. I did not counsel them to stop. I think it was that we needed to look at all the steps and all the interests. And it is my obligation as counsel to the city of Apopka to address and to be concerned with all legal interests that relate to the city. I cannot pick and choose. The courts will not pick and choose. But I need to prepare for every possible defense. I need to have that preparation presented to our counsel, who will be assisting us in that matter. And I advised the chief that in those regards, it is best that we have a proper channels and have all the proper parties involved in order to then prepare a proper legal defense. And I cannot be reckless with the legal defense of the city of Apopka. I have to take all these things into consideration. And that's as far as I will discuss in open council any type of basically legal work product in regards to this situation without this being stated in an executive session.
One last follow-up real quick.
No.
One quick follow-up though in that regard. So it was my understanding, and again, I get updates through news outlets and social media, unfortunately, but when were we going to be made aware that there was a notice of claim filed? Because my understanding, it was filed in October, and I don't know if the other commissioners were made aware of that situation. I certainly wasn't, but I would think that if we've had a notice of claim that's 2 months stale, that we had not been advised properly on this topic, because we could have put our foot in our mouth and put the city at further risk. So when was your plan to let us know that it was out there or filed?
Well, I advised the staff of such when it was filed. It's gone through a risk management. I have not received an update from risk management as to the current status of it. I know there has been I don't want to go into the details. I don't want to misspeak. There has been a determination on the part, I think, of the workers' compensation claim as well. But these are certain issues that at this regard, because we're still in that preliminary stage, that, staff was made aware and that the proper steps were taken at that level in order to make the proper preparations for pending litigation. As to the current status of the claim and where it's gone forward from our insurance carrier, I don't have an update yet.
Yeah, I just want for the record that the notice of claim, and correct me if the date was wrong, I think it was filed October 18th, and it's December 21st, and this is the first time that we've, I don't want to speak for other commissioners, but me as a commissioner have official notification that it exists.
Yeah, I feel this whole thing's just blundered. I mean, it's, again, I'm just going to say how embarrassing this is. The fact that we don't know about that, you're supposed to be representing all of us. If you direct staff or you told staff, that's not me. You work for all of us. So I'm just going to cap all this off with information breeds confidence, silence breeds fear. You guys not communicating effectively with us or with the residents or with the Duran family or with firefighters has bred fear throughout this entire city. It needs to stop, and we need to start bringing information to the table. Thank you.
Michael, why don't we have an executive session before the next council meeting? We can bring everybody up to speed on where we're at.
We can have we can have it scheduled for the next council meeting.
Already? Okay.
I need to have it properly noticed and placed on the agenda for such.
Okay.
And can we make like a policy going up if we're being sued, like we're notified and we have a executive session?
There hasn't been a lawsuit filed. Notice of claim is a first step. It was received from council for I believe it was the Duran estate. It's not the filing of a lawsuit. There hasn't been service of process, but it is
If
the
there's
first.
any chat of it in any capacity, of any lawsuit or any notice of any capacity in any way that could lead to litigation in any way, please notify us moving forward.
We have multiple.
I'm telling you, I didn't have the information anyway. I was not confirmed that they've filed any sort of action in any capacity.
I mean, we're missing the point here. The notice of claim in your eyes is the kind of the precursor of litigation. You provided, I want to use my words correctly. You provided feedback to our chief who took formal action based off of the threat of litigation, i.e. this notice of claim is what caused us to think litigation is looming. So there was actions taken that those actions have trickle-down effects of people that have long tenured experience in this department that bring valuable insights into doing a post-incident critique and making sure that our firefighters are safer because of it. That all is a trickle-down effect from this whatever event took place on October 18th with the notice of claim. So we can talk semantics here, but I think we all know what should or should not be bubbled up to council. If someone is tripping on a sidewalk in the park and is going to have litigation against us, that might be more in the, hey, business as usual category. When there's lawsuits around the death of one of our city employees, I think that hits a different mark. And I think we all are aware of what that mark is.
Is that it?
We have Gail Duran.
A couple things. Gail Duran, 908 Southern Oak Lane, Apopka, Florida. I had to write mine down because I don't speak as well as Mike does. But I will say a couple things before I start what I actually wrote is the post-incident critique. Chief Wylam said that he knew that they've done it. You bump a bumper, whatever, and they know what they need to do. Then why did you need a safety committee? And why wasn't it done potentially before whatever October date that the filing was? So that's one of my questions, because they still could have done the critique. It would have been the same. They should have done the same thing, and they didn't need to wait 5 months to start it. My other part to the attorney that's sitting over here from a transparency point of view, it's funny that you can't tell them what happened to the claim when I've already been notified what you said to the claim. So I'll let you all take that behind closed doors, because I can't believe he doesn't know if I know, and it's been delivered in writing. Okay. Public record, and this kind of goes back to what Kyle was saying. Your public records on file at City of Apopka indicate that Chief Wylam and John Howe received perfect scores on their annual evaluations. How can that be? How can that happen? These guys are perfect. They did nothing wrong. My son died on their watch, and they got a perfect score. And they got a raise on top of that. So the fact that as management, they didn't have various assets registered like the sand trailer, the fact that their firefighters weren't trained on them, and on that day, they weren't even supervised while using them, and you're telling me there's nothing they need to do to improve. There's nothing they could do. Someone dents a bumper and they get points taken away on their review. And in this case, someone dies and they get 60 points. 60 out of 60. 60 out of 60. All the changes that have happened, they didn't do, we did. Safety officer, training officer, and the need for 18 more firefighters, we fought for, but they're the ones doing a great job. And the state fire marshal indicated on 9/12, 2 months before the review was written, 2 months, they've had that information about the things that needed to change. 4 things, as Mike was saying, the policy and use of, no policy for use of equipment, no training, no experienced supervision, and the improper use of an installed safety device. But he still gets 60 out of 60. I'm not sure who does Wylam's review, evidently I found out today, but he should be held accountable for the transgressions of the station and his people. No one here is being held accountable. Before being a division chief, John Howe for 10 years was in charge of training. In charge of training. Shouldn't he have suggested changes or suggested improvements? Chief Howe is the supervising officer on the day that the accident happened. He's actually the one that instructed Austin and Ty to go move the sand trailer. Shouldn't he know better? In a discussion with the family, John Howe thought he would be fired for an event that caused Austin's death, for the loss of life on his shift, on his watch. I hope at least this information is taken into his review that's due in February. Because on the ones that he has from 21 and 22, he also got perfect scores. Both, funny enough, were mirror images of each other, literally copied and pasted from 21 into February of 22. It's amazing that the administration at the AFD is a perfect 60 out of 60. All of them, not one thing for them to do better. What message are you sending us, the family, the firefighters, and the community? That Wylam can do no wrong? That Howe is justified in making our son perform a task that he had never done before? That my son may have been afraid to say anything based on the culture of the department? You are only solidifying the fact that this department is broken, and that you, the mayor, raise a blind eye and continue to run a good old boys club and a school of hard knocks to run this division. This needs to change, and if the city council cannot see, then we are worse off than I ever imagined. Thank you.
And Bobby Sanders.
Hello, I'm Bobby Sanders, and I'm very proud of Apopka too, and I'm proud of our whole team of leaders. There's been things that really need to be addressed, and I believe that together we'll get them addressed. In politics, it becomes a ugly. I witnessed it myself in the election. I went out and I campaigned for Brian Nelson because I know Brian Nelson as a good person, as a good man, and his wife Debbie, and before the terrible tragedy happened, which hurt us all, and I saw Brian and Debbie when that happened, and I seen the hurt in their eyes. And for anybody to ever blame Brian Nelson or his wife of that happening, mistakes happen and horrible things happen, but only will we ever be a community together is to work together and not crucify somebody when a terrible, terrible thing happens. There's political opponents that stalked him and on a daily basis of people I don't even know, and I'm born and raised here, the mole, whoever these people are, they're despicable. They try to crucify him at every means. And I'm here to stand up to say that Brian Nelson is a good man, and I hope that everybody can find it in their heart that to at least give him compassion as a person. And that's the reason I come out of my comfortable zone. I have no political gain by anything. I don't want no political gain. I just want to live in this town and see our town succeed. And I hope everybody will do it together. That's all I came for.
Yeah, to address that, I mean, the only person I know that ran against Mayor Nelson is myself, and, you know, I've said it many time and again, I lost that campaign. So, you know, I challenge anybody to come up here and say any of the remarks that we're making right here now are politically driven. There's facts on the table. There's no disputing of those facts, as the mayor eloquently said in the press conference earlier. Facts are a funny thing. Facts is we lost a valuable member of this department. And between then and now, what people have said or committed to doing have not transpired. So I'm used to being challenged on politics, or some of us being challenged on politics, but this is beyond politics. This is making sure that our people are safe in this city.
So I've been the quiet one up here, kind of listening to everyone, to include the Duran family. What was concerning to me was the resignation of 2 members. What concerned me also at the press conference was statements made about each of the members who did resign to sort of discredit their capability of continuing to serve. We had pushed to have the safety committee in place, and it was post Austin Duran's death, and it was important to us here in the council, and it was important to the public, and most importantly to the Duran family, that we put their son's life above everything. And that safety committee was convened specifically to investigate this, and kind of a timeline, or just what did we miss in the operations? How could we change it? And I feel that that's the direction our safety committee was going. So when we got these 2 resignations, which I will tell you, and I'm going to say, is that time and time again, as long as I've been sitting up here, I have really voiced my concern that we as commissioners seem to rely on social media. That is where I get my information. And that's not where I should be getting my information. That information should be coming from right here in City Hall from the staff. And so it concerns me that 2 members have resigned. I don't want to discredit them in any way. I don't want to discredit why they felt that they had to resign. I feel their resignation is sending a message. We need to fix this, and we need to give the Duran family what they have asked for when their son passed away. How can we fix it? They realize that we can never bring Austin back, but it is important to them to know that their son's death is not in vain, and that we are doing what we must do in order to change the culture that has been in place for a very long time with the fire department. And it's not to discredit anyone, it's certainly not to take away from anyone, but at least to say, what can we do to make improvements? So with that said, with 2 members now resign, I would like to have that safety committee reinstalled or new members put in there, and for it to continue what its mission was from the very beginning. And that was to investigate the accident and how can we change it. So that's it.
Okay. With that, we got 6 items on consent. Look for a motion to approve the 6 consent agenda items.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Richard, or Dio.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. My name is Deodat Buru, Public Service Director. This evening, I will be addressing the business item 1, 2, and 3, as Richard is out on vacation. On item 1 is a citywide LED lighting conversion. We're proposing to convert all the existing lighting to LED lights at the city facility as noted in the staff report. We have estimated the cost at $450,000, and this fund was earmarked at the October 19, 2022 council meeting to be funded from the coronavirus relief fund. My request here for tonight is for the council to approve to release this funding of $450,000 for the lighting conversion project to be proceeded.
Yeah, I mean, my only, and we talked about this on our prep meeting on Monday. So this item, as well as 1 through 4, all of them were previously allocated in the October 19th meeting that you were referencing.
That's
So these
correct.
aren't net new allocations. And then we also discussed, because, you know, as these LED lights have been installed elsewhere, more so in the traffic light realm, you know, some of these LEDs, when they go bad, they turn like these weird colors of blue and purple and all that sort of stuff. So making sure that we have the proper warranties in place, that since we own these lights, we've got long-term warranties that will cover if, you know, we get bad kind of bulbs, if you will.
Right, we have the warranty from what I spoke to staff, the warranty with these lights, right, come with a 5-year manufacturer warranty, right? And in terms of the installation, there's a 1-year installation warranty.
You know, I'm sorry, Mr. Deodat.
I said-
Can you repeat that again?
Right, I said for example, if you have a contractor coming to install these lights, right, we have a 1-year warranty for the contractor for any workmanship or any issue, right? That's the standard practice in the industry. For the light itself, those come with a 5-year warranty. So which means those lights will be owned by us, by the city of Apopka. So we will have to call the manufacturer should anything goes wrong with them. Now, the light that Commissioner is talking about, you know, those are exposed to the outside, and those are, you know, light comes from acid rain and all the other features. We don't know what will happen indoor, but that's the warranty.
So just after 5 years, are we setting up sort of a maintenance program in order to start checking them when they start to reach their 5th year? How does that work then? Do we replace them, or do we just wait until
Well,
they no
after-
longer are functioning?
Right. I think what the Commissioner and Becca were talking about is if you have discoloration or something else with those lights. I think those lights will be functioning for more than 5 years. It's not going to you know, it's the discoloration, the kind of intensity that was coming from the light, the brightness or something like that sort. And then we can call the manufacturer and said, maybe you have a defective product here, you know, during the 5-year period. But if it's not well defective, those lights will be continued well to function as designed.
Okay. Any other questions for Dio?
Mayor, I have one comment I'd like to make. Commissioners, if you recall, we talked about the savings that we would get from this. And we think there's anywhere from a 4 or 5 year payback period. So as I promised, and we will do this, Richard and Gio's group, after we get them all installed, we will come back to you after we've got a good year of operation to show you actually how much you're saving based on this change out for all of our facilities. So I think that's important.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the allocation of coronavirus relief funds for the citywide LED lighting conversion project.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up,
So item 2 is regarding Fund Carlton Great Room restoration. And this restoration includes the replacing of the ceiling tile, replacing the ceiling insulation, drywall restoration, replacement of the accordion separation wall, and floor replacement. We have estimated the cost to be around $250,000, and this fund was earmarked again on October the 19th, 2022 at the council meeting to be funded from the coronavirus relief fund. Our request here is for the council to approve to release these funds so we can proceed with that renovation.
Any questions for Dio on this item?
Do you have any ideas how long this particular project is going to take?
AJ, do you have a timeline?
3 months?
3 months.
3 months.
Okay.
And we'll try to do it without disrupting as, few events as we can. So we'll try to
Right.
work around as far as the tiles.
Right, I think we will try to work from February 27th to March 23rd. I think that's a window of opportunity whether we have where no function will be taking place there.
Any other questions for Dio? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this one? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the allocation of coronavirus relief funds for the Fran Carlton Restoration Project.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up,
Yeah, item 3 is regarding the grounding and lightning suppression project. The electrical grounding and lighting and surge protection of the City Hall, Fire Station 1, and VFW Community Center is very deficient. And these facilities suffer damage due to lightning strike, which affect the computer system, heating and ventilation system, and other electronics. We have a consultant provide us a proposal to evaluate the situation and formulate 3 recommendation plan to correct the deficiencies in the grounding and lightning suppression system. This has been an old system, and we could not diagnose what is creating the problem. The estimated cost is around $250,000 for the entire retrofit, including the assessment cost, meaning that when the recommendation come back, right, and we construct that recommendation, right, it depends on the cost of the 3 recommendation, and we don't know what those recommendation would be. So this fund was earmarked at our October 19, 2022 council meeting to be funded from the coronavirus. So my request again here is to release that funding of $250 so we can proceed with this project.
any questions for Dio? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the allocation of coronavirus relief funds for the City Hall area grounding and lightning suppression project.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right. Vlad, you on number 4?
Good evening, everyone. Vladimir Simonovsky, Public Services Department. Mayor, Commissioner, what we're bringing in front of you tonight is a request to approve the contract with Stage Door 2 for construction of a stormwater conveyance system along South Highland Avenue between East 7th Street and East 8th Street and on the City of Apopka real property located between these 2 roads in the amount of $186,525. The city has determined that improvement of the major drainage ditch traveling through the area of South Apopka and conveying runoff from this section of town to Martin's Pond, located at the interchange of US Highway 441 and State Road 436, is needed for ease of operation and maintenance of its stormwater program. This work is planned in phases, beginning just north of the intersection of South Highland Avenue and East 8th Street and traveling across the city-owned property located just north of the current City of Apopka Streets Operations and Maintenance Complex. Constructing the stormwater conveyance system along this route will create an opportunity to combine the 2 city-owned properties into one, generating approximately additional 0.43 acres of future development. Stage Door 2 has provided an official quote to perform this work based on their active infrastructure repair and replacement contract with Orange County, and this contract was approved by City Council on October 5th of this year as a piggyback contract. So this project is funded through the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, which disbursement was approved by City Council on October 19 of this year in the amount of $200,000. So before we move to recommended motion, I'm ready to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Vlad? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the contract with Stage Door 2.
Yeah, one question. Because it says the total is 186, but you're asking for 200?
Correct. 200 were already earmarked, and the remaining of that will be used for contingency. So that's what we are asking, total of $200,000. So the quote came as 186,525.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Not look for a motion to approve the contract with Stage Door 2 for construction of the stormwater conveyance system along South Highland Avenue between East 7th Street and East 8th Street and on City of Apopka property.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Nesta. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, Michael.
Michael Rodriguez, City Attorney. The item before you is the request to approve and execute the purchase and sale agreement between the City of Apopka and Robert Roush for the purchase of real property located at 562 Snowden Road. As you may be aware, this is the property that was brought earlier, requesting the resolution of necessity, as this was part of the conjunction of parcels to complete the stormwater retention area. The resolution of necessity was needed in order to begin the first steps for possible condemnation. At that point, I also stated that this was a property that the parties were going to be able to settle and effectuate a sale without it having to begin with eminent domain proceedings. The parties came to a resolution and agreed on the purchase of the real property for the appraised value. The parties also agreed as part, in order to effectuate the sale, was for also the sale and purchase of the personal property located on the property. I think there was, basically it came to a settlement between the parties in order to ease the transaction between the two properties. So that was the agreed upon amounts, and at this point I'm asking for the council's authorization to execute the contract. The seller's representative has reviewed the contract, is in agreement with all the terms that were presented in the contract. At this point, the execution of the contract on behalf of the city will begin. We begin then the proceedings to move forward to a closing and a sale. Closing probably occurring in January of next year.
Any questions for Michael?
The notice that we did, that was just to basically help buy them more time, correct? Was it
For 1031.
The reason
Right.
for the notice is the seller indicated that they wished to, and this was a stickling point in the early negotiations. The seller indicated their wishes to enter into a 1033 exchange. And under a 1033 exchange, that allows the seller to basically reinvest the proceeds of the sale with an additional amount of time without having to be subject to taxation. One of the prerequisites for a 1033 exchange is that the sale is done under threat of condemnation or under threat of eminent domain. The resolution of necessity is sufficient evidence to provide that the property is being sold under the risk and under the threat of an eminent domain proceedings. And that way then there is a term in the contract in which the city will cooperate with the seller, will not stand in the way or interfere with the seller's attempts to effectuate a 1033 exchange.
And then there's a single family home on that property, right? Or is there not?
I don't think so.
It's just vacant land with some.
I think it's vacant and the property owner has that personal property that's located. Initially, there were discussions about having extended rental storage and other types of agreements because of the storage, and I think the parties agreed that the best way to effectuate the sale and the property owner believed, look, the best way is to complete the purchase of the personal property, and a lot of that property can actually be now used by the city, and if we find that that's equipment and property that the city can use, then that's what'll go forward and after we purchase it as part of the sale.
And then if we don't find it suitable to use, we'll sell it and just kind of offsets that cost, or what is that? Where do those funds go?
We're going to use
Right, that might go. I mean, we'll get to that bridge when we get there.
Okay. Any other questions?
So that was my only question, was the tangible personal property list. We are going to document all of those assets as city assets that the city plans to use, that entire list.
That's the entire list of the personal property that's being purchased.
And factually speaking, yes.
Yeah.
The intent post-transaction is for use by the city. That's the
Correct. That's the
sticking point for
intent.
me, right?
If it's use that can be used, then we will effectuate that. Yes, that'll be a personal property that will be used by the
Said
city.
differently, we've assessed the tangible property list and we plan to use it.
That is my
Maybe
belief.
I'm not talking to you, maybe I'm
Yeah.
talking to staff, but if I can get an affirmative answer to that. I just want it for the record.
Yes, Vladimir Simonovsky, Public Services Department. The property will be definitely used for reclaimed water storage.
No, the property of the 313, absolutely. My thing is, we're paying $50,000 for tangible personal property as part of this transaction, and it's enumerated on the Exhibit A. I just want comfort that we're not throwing $50,000 after some land to entice the deal when we have no intention to use the personal property. I just want comfort that we are actually we see value in these assets and we're going to use these assets.
That's correct. So I can confirm that. So the intention is, once we acquire this property, then we're going to combine the remaining properties into one property, and that's going to be part of the Apopka Water Reclamation Facility.
Sorry, I'm not being clear.
Okay. No,
I think we got
Land
it.
transaction, I totally get it. It's strategic.
Yeah.
We're going to incorporate it as part of the larger strategy. That is not a
No.
point of contention.
That property will be used by the city and will for
So I heard an
purpose, for
affirmative,
public
so
purposes.
That's where I'm basing my, okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement between the city of Apopka and Robert Roush for property located at 562 Snowden Road.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Pam Richmond.
Uh-oh. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know why I got it.
There we go.
There you go.
My request is to allow for the purchase of a small parcel of land where we would like to extend Peterson Road. The developer is currently building on the site, and he offered it to us originally for $80,000, which is what he thought the appraised value was going to be. We had it appraised at 54, and he agreed to sell it to us for that price. We're going to need that property when we extend Peterson Road to the west to ultimately connect to Shelby Industrial Drive. There is a large development coming in on the west called Mid-Florida Logistics South. I expect that they're going to help us design and construct that road. It will be beneficial to their site, and if we buy it now, it will avoid a takings or using eminent domain later.
Any questions for Pam? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to authorize the mayor to purchase right-of-way for the extension of Peterson Road.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Nesta. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2970.
Ordinance number 2970, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing the future land use designation from county rural to mixed use for certain real property generally located north and east of US 441, east of Apopka Airport Road and west of Hermit Smith Road, owned by Tyler Crusades, Inc., comprising of 40.14 acres more or less, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Any changes, Gene?
There's no changes,
No
Mayor.
changes. Okay. Any questions for Gene? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2970.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2971.
Ordinance number 2971, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from county PD plan development and County A1 Citrus Rural to MUES GT Mixed Use East Shore Gateway Subdistrict for certain real property generally located north and east of US 441, east of Apopka Airport Road, and west of Hermit Smith Road, comprising 40.14 acres more or less, and owned by Tyler Crusades, Inc., providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Jean,
No
any
changes, Mayor. No, sir.
Any questions for Jean? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2971.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2977.
Ordinance number 2977, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing the future land use designation from county rural, 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres, to city commercial for certain real property generally located north of US 441, Connector Road West, east of State Road 429, and west of Plymouth Sorrento Road. Owned by Robert Grossenbacher, 1/5 interest, Scott Grossenbacher and Todd Grossenbacher, 1/5 interest, Carolyn Ditch Trust, 1/5 interest, Mary Frisbee, 1/5 interest, Elizabeth Townsend, 1/5 interest, comprising 8.39 acres more or less, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Jean, any changes?
No changes, sir.
Any questions for Jean? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2977.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Nesta. Yep. So that's 4-1 with Commissioner Nesta in opposition.
Which one is that one? 29.
77.
Okay.
Okay,
And
next
that
up,
was Smith.
ordinance number 2978.
Ordinance number 2978, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from County A1 Citrus Rural to City CC Community Commercial for certain real property generally located north of US 441, Connector Road West, east of State Road 429, and west of Plymouth Sorrento Road. Owned by Robert Grossenbacher, 1/5 interest, Scott Grossenbacher and Todd Grossenbacher, 1/5 interest, Carolyn Ditch Trust, 1/5 interest, Mary Frisbee, 1/5 interest, Elizabeth Townsend, 1/5 interest, comprising 8.39 acres more or less, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay.
No
Jean?
changes,
No
Mayor.
changes? Okay. Any questions?
I just have one. All of these read project manager Roxanne Reed. Are you now,
I'm just here to substitute for Roxanne tonight. She's not in the meeting.
okay.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2978.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker,
So moved. I mean, second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion
No.
Oh, that's
motion
right. It's 4-1.
Passes 4-1 with
Nesta.
Commissioner Nesta.
3-1, Commissioner Smith left the room.
Oh, 3-1, I'm sorry.
Who said no?
Commissioner Nesta.
Oh, so
And Commissioner Smith's not here. Okay.
also,
Next
I
up,
mean, so is he not going to be present? I hate to conduct
it's fine.
business and he's not here.
it's fine. We're good.
No, I didn't like it when it was done to me. So,
He's voted on it once already in the affirmative. This is the second reading.
yeah, but why should we continue to conduct business without one commissioner who is present?
I mean, at this point, if you wish to have a brief recess until Commissioner Smith returns, you can do so. I don't want to stop this one and have go forward because we'll come at the same issue when we come up to the votes again, so.
Then that's what we will do, because I know when it was done to me, I thought it was not courteous. So he's not present. I will wait for him to come back so that he can give his vote.
It's, I mean, at this point, I just need to, if you're going to be in recess, have to call a brief recess.
Call a brief recess for 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right, back to recess. Okay, Gene.
Okay, Mayor, as to the previous item, ordinance 2978, in order to effectuate a correct vote, I need the motion maker to withdraw his previous motion, second to agree so, and then redo the motion
Okay.
and a second, so then we can have a proper vote.
Okay,
Yeah, I would move to revoke my motion on ordinance number 2978.
And
Oh,
this,
so I have to
this
do
is
the
the
same
second
thing.
to second that revoke, and now,
Okay, second.
correct, and now you can have the motion,
Okay,
the
now we
proper
need a-
motion.
Need a
And
motion?
so I
So moved.
apologize because I didn't realize that Commissioner Smith wasn't here.
That's fine.
Okay, so have a motion to adopt ordinance number 2978.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
And
All
then there was
opposed?
one no.
One-
That was Nesta.
Yes. Okay, 4-1 with Nesta in the opposition. Okay, next up, ordinance number 2986.
Ordinance number 2986, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described lands situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by Soil Blending Properties LLC, located west of Hermit Smith Road, east of Conrad Road, and south of Hogshead Road, comprising 10.07 acres, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
No changes.
No changes. Okay. We need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2986.
Do we need a public comment for that?
Oh, public comment, anybody from the public want to speak on this? Okay, not. Need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2986.
So moved.
Got a motion
Second.
by Commissioner Nesta, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2987.
Ordinance number 2987, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described lands situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by Central Florida Expressway Authority, located on the southwest corner of Peterson Road and State Road 429, comprising 6 acres, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Mayor, the applicant has requested that this item is tabled to a date certain of February 15th, 2023, due to contractual obligations.
Okay.
So
So
do
we're
we need to
asking
move
for
to table that until then?
Right,
Yes, sir.
I didn't get the date.
Date
February
specific,
15th.
yes, February
February
15th,
1, 2,
2023.
okay, so that is the second meeting. I just wanted
Yes.
to
Yes.
Yep.
make sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Any questions for Gene about that? Anybody from the public here to weigh in on that issue? If not, look for a motion to table ordinance number 2987 to a date specific, Wednesday, February 15th, 2023.
Isn't that the one that Pam just talked about?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
It has to do really with paperwork.
Oh, okay.
It's contracts. I'm not specifically sure what.
Okay.
From my understanding, they have to close on the property to be able to then annex it. I guess CFX, there's something there that they have to actually close on the property and then we can finalize the annexation.
Okay.
Right. It has to be after February 8th, and that would be the next available meeting.
Okay. So you need a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez, a second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2988.
Ordinance number 2988, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka by amending Chapter 38, Environment, by creating Article 4, Noise, to regulate noise standards within the City of Apopka, by amending Part 3, Land Development Code, Article 5, Development Standards, Section 5.16, Miscellaneous Standards, by deleting subsection 5.16.1, Noise Standards, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Michael?
Good evening. Before you here is draft ordinance number 2988 for first reading. This is the quote-unquote noise ordinance. As is drafted, the noise ordinance is modeled after and consistent with Orange County's noise standards. A lot of the same objective standards in regarding the decibel levels in excess of the codified provisions would constitute noise violations. I've given all of you an opportunity to review it I think you guys have almost had it for about a month and a half to review the standards. The basic, again, most of the language is very consistent with Orange County. This was done purposefully in order to allow for ease of interpretation as well as actually ease of enforcement for properties, especially those properties that straddle the city limits. This would ease us to make things easier to cooperate with Orange County if, one, we have the source of noise coming from unincorporated with the receiving noise being an incorporated, or vice versa. Because the standards in the county and the city are the same, there is an easy opportunity for cooperation between the sheriff's office. Actually, in Orange County, their environmental division, in conjunction with the sheriff's office, enforces their noise ordinance. We don't have such a structure. But again, as in drafting this, I did review other noise ordinances from other municipalities and counties in the surrounding area. And one of the things I believed was best to stress is that all the standards in this noise ordinance are objective standards that are easily measurable. The Supreme Court has ruled that noise ordinances that run on a subjective standards, and a lot of them being like plainly audible, those are unconstitutionally vague, and they have been stricken. And continuing along those lines and having such regulations that would be open to interpretation would make things difficult for the police department to enforce. The enforcement will be done through the police department, through civil citations. Offending parties will not be brought to county court. If a offending party wishes to appeal their civil citation, the matter is then handled through our code enforcement special magistrate, and all the matters are strictly civil. These are not criminal offenses, but are civil offenses addressed through the municipal code enforcement route. One thing that's important to stress is that upon the effective date of this ordinance, that does not necessarily mean that the police department will be issuing civil citations the next day. The police department will then have to draft administrative policies and procedures, as well as acquire the proper instrumentation to properly enforce the ordinance. The police department is working with both the police chief and the police department's legal advisor are working to get to that point where they will then implement those administrative policies for the proper enforcement and administration of the ordinance when it comes to this. But practically speaking, the ordinance enumerates specific violations if such acts pass the thresholds that are provided under the code. And it is really strictly a scientific matter which should be easily to enforce. Offender A had noise that exceeded the levels provided for, and that's the violation as long as the instruments are properly calibrated and can be presented. These are matters that can easily be handled. One of the things that we've also added is for a variance mechanism. So if there is a party that is planning any type of event which may potentially run afoul of the noise ordinances, there will be a mechanism for such a party to come in and ask for a variance and have to state the reasons why they basically need an exemption for a specific event. The city staff will review. Those will be handled through the community development department. They will review the application, analyze the evidence presented to them, and then the final decision for the granting of such a variance will be done through the development review committee. And that will then offer an opportunity for surrounding property owners who may be affected. I think there's a notification provision for that. They can present arguments, and then the DRC will evaluate the application and grant such an exemption or not. There are then also specific statutory exemptions. I think one of the most important ones, there is an exemption for public events. So In the unlikely event, say, Saturday sounds exceeds the decibel requirements, such a public event will be exempt from the noise ordinance, as well as other exemptions. Then there are other violations in which it's just a blanket. If these noises are done at a certain time, they're in violation. Some of these are readily, I think they don't really interfere with a First Amendment issues. Construction jackhammers at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of a readily obvious violation we've already encountered. And this ordinance will help us as well as assist. And we've had issues with in developments where construction has commenced prior to 7 a.m.
7 a.m.
There are mechanisms within this ordinance that would allow our officers to issue citations for construction activities that occur outside of proper construction business hours, including weekends.
So I just want to kind of interrupt you. And I know that I had some residents that where the gas stations back up behind them. And I've had residents reach out to me and say, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when people come to, put gas in their tanks, they have the radio blasted. And sometimes they're there for long periods of time. Is that something that they can call? Even though it's not in their neighborhood, but it's commercial retail behind them, which is the gas stations.
The interpretation of the ordinance is that if the receiving property receives the noise and the noise at the receiving property exceeds the decibel levels that are provided for in the ordinance, then it'll be a violation. Now, if a neighbor hears music, they call an officer arrives at the property, the music is still playing, and let me get the exact, so that my example is factually correct. Okay, so they arrive, and they say at night they hear the music, they then do their readings, and the reading comes in at 50 decibels. That's 5 decibels below the statutory limit for it to exceed a violation. So that's why it's not necessarily, that's the difference between readily audible and then the scientific threshold of there's no question here that they either exceed this decibel level or they don't.
Okay.
Any other questions for Michael?
Yeah, I had a couple, sorry.
You can go ahead.
In reference to the police policies, procedures, do we have like a rough timeline on like what that looks like? Should this get approved at next meeting?
For that, I defer to Chief McKinley.
Sorry.
Don't get comfortable there, Chief.
Yeah.
I don't have a timeline right now because we're not going to start a policy until you all tell me what the ordinance is. There's no sense in me starting a policy and then you all make tweaks or changes to this ordinance. We'll have to make sure it aligns with accreditation and everything else that we do. We have to get the citations printed. We got some work ahead of us. There's no doubt about that. We got to purchase the decimal meters. We have to purchase them from a company that we know we can have them calibrated every 6 months. It appears that the company we hired to calibrate our speedometers and our radar detectors has recommended some devices that they can calibrate every 6 months when they're at the police department to calibrate our speedometers and our equipment. So we have some work ahead of us, no doubt about it. I would imagine it's probably going to take us 3 or 4 months to get this accomplished, get them in. We have to do significant training with all of our police officers to make sure they're trained properly, or at least some of them are trained properly in the use of these devices. We still have to make a decision on how many devices we're going to purchase, and to be upfront with you, it's an unfunded liability for me. I did not budget for these, so we may be coming back asking for the funding to purchase these decimal meters. I got to make sure that we have enough in place that we have them available. If they're at the department and it takes us 20 minutes to go get it and 20 minutes to go back, the situation may resolve itself before then. So we have some internal discussions to have on the enforcement end of it, develop the policies, get the equipment, and do the proper training.
Thank you. General cost for that equipment and training?
I don't have it right now. I know that Lieutenant Brick is looking at what we could purchase, what's out there. It's with any other piece of electronic equipment. There's varying degrees of cost. I don't want to say that we're going to go with the cheapest. We want to be able to have something that is going to be able to be maintained and that is going to hold up if we do end up in court through an appeals process or something else. But, my intent is to make sure that we're doing it right.
Okay. And I don't know this question. I know you have a specific feeling about these. For car washes, they're being put right next to residential areas. Then their blowers make loud noises. Is this going to be an issue that we now have to address in some capacity? Or
I think that, I think you've seen me ask the question at DRC. They close. They're going to be closed before this noise ordinance technically goes into effect at the timeline. And most of them will not carry into the subdivisions because, I ask this question all the time about the noise because that creates work for my department. If we have businesses that are going to create noise that go into the residential areas, most of the developments, especially the car washes, have the buffers to prevent that. They're usually on the opposite side of the street. We'll see about the one on Rock Springs Road that backs up to the mobile home park. As it gets approved and goes through the process, it is going to be close to the mobile home park. That's going to create another challenge. Mobile home parks in the county, the business is going to be in the city. So it might be the county that charges them with a noise ordinance violation. But I do ask the questions when they come to DRC, and the answer to all the car washes is, I think they're closing at 8, 9 o'clock, something like that, so that they're not carrying the noise. The later it gets in the evening, all of us know that sound carries as we get later into the evening. Our sirens can be heard much further at 2 o'clock in the morning than they can at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. And the last comment I just have is that this ordinance will need to take, and this isn't specifically to you, just in general, we're probably going to need to massage this down the road a little bit should this get approved and we move forward with it. So just be open to some critiques down the road that we may need to adjust. That's all I'm asking of the council, our attorney.
Can you clarify that for me? Because again, this affects how I write policy.
I agree, and I don't know if this will cause some unintended consequences. So I don't know what that looks like down.
Okay, and that's fine. I mean, if
I don't have anything
if you see
specific.
anything glaring right now, I
No.
prefer we fix that before the second reading so that I can begin to write our policies.
Right.
And we can begin the training process.
Understood.
I mean, like I said, we have a lot of work ahead of us just for this one ordinance, and I want to get it done, and we want to make sure that we do it right. There's always tweaks with everything we do. Minor tweaks we can deal with because there's minor tweaks in policy, but I don't want to have to, in 4 months, totally rewrite a policy.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Becker?
Yeah, it really, maybe Chief, don't go too far. You might want to answer some of these questions. Because, I had my pre-meeting on Monday and you weren't in the room, but I asked some of these same questions and you touched on it just a second ago. So would any passing of this ordinance be punitive to you and your ability to enforce it? As long as, obviously, you aren't keen to unfunded mandates, right? But you need budget to get the equipment, do the training. But do you see any glaring things that would cause you to raise a red flag on this one?
No, we worked with Mr. Rodriguez and Aaron DeYoung, the police department's attorney, has worked with Mr. Rodriguez to make sure, we try to get it into somewhat plain English. Some of the ordinances that we read, to be honest with you, I didn't even understand them. I'm like, I don't even know, if I can't understand it, how can I tell our police officers how to enforce it?
Yeah.
I think we're good. It establishes decimal, points, and it's, as easy as we can make it for the police officer and to make sure that they can fill out the report and take it to the hearing officer if somebody wishes to contest it. I think it specifically addresses who is going to get the citation and everything. I'm comfortable with it at this time. As Commissioner Nesta said, we may come back to you for some tweaks as we go through the process and determine that there might be some things
Right.
that unintended consequences, like you said, that we aren't aware of also.
Sure. Okay.
Along those lines, that we drafted the ordinance together.
Okay.
So any issues, we already hashed them out between the two departments before we presented them here to you today.
Gotcha. Good, yeah, I just don't want to force anything on you that you feel uncomfortable with. And it's obviously it's a two-way street. We can.
No,
Yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez drafted
Yeah.
it, he sent it to me. I
Good.
made my tweaks, Ms. DeYoung made her tweaks, and collectively, this is what you see in front of you.
Okay.
He
The
would
other-
have let me know if I overstepped his bounds.
And another, this was just an oddball thing. I noticed on the mayor's official account, he had named the ordinance after a resident who's been vocal on this topic. I'm assuming we're not getting in the practice of naming ordinances after
We're not
people.
naming that.
I
I did not name it after anybody.
No offense, I know that he's in the room right now, but I know that there's been several people that have voiced concerns about noise and things like that. And I just had a thought on my mind and it just escaped me. Oh, this kind of dovetails into my other request that I asked on the first meeting back. And, you know, it's unfortunate that nobody in this audience knows what the language of the ordinance is. We still are not transparent about putting the full ordinance language on the website. So if I'm a member of this audience, I go out to the packet, it only says the lead-in, it does not have any of the ordinance language that we're contemplating here tonight. So my ask and my hope is that it is published between now and the second reading so that the general public knows precisely what we're talking about here. Because right now, nobody in this room has seen it unless they ask for a public record.
Again, in that case, I mean, I'll defer to IT, who actually does the implementation of the crafting of the language to disseminate it.
So here's the value chain here. IT can give us thumbs up or thumbs down to say if it's ADA compliant. It's a Word document, so I'm positive that it's going to be ADA compliant in terms of readable. It then becomes the agenda clerk's prerogative of whether or not it's published on our website. So I would assume that everybody in the room's generally head nodding that we want our public to see what the ordinance language is going to be that they're going to have to then adhere to. So
Yes,
I'm
Commissioner.
hoping that it's a quick fix, click of a button, and we can post it.
So I've gotten with Mayor Nelson and Mr. Bass on this to show them some of the various agencies, show them their actual agenda packets, and then let them see ours, to, compare them so they can understand what ours looks like and feel comfortable with them being on there. It's going to require community development to also do a little more work when they're getting in some PDFs from a third party. They can't take it in as a scanned copy. They're going to have to get one of the originals to put it in so it can be OCR'd and read properly.
And I'm not, and appreciate that. I'm not trying to boil the ocean on this one yet. Like that's why I say it kind of dovetails into that conversation. But I think
Absolutely.
at minimum, when we're talking about a formal ordinance and the language around that ordinance, especially around noise, because people are going to hear that. Like even so, after this meeting, people are going to assume that the noise ordinance is in place, and you're probably going to get a whole bunch of calls. And so if we don't plan for that stuff, I just want to make sure that people that say, okay, noise ordinance, let me go out to our website, click on the agenda packet, look at the actual record. Right now, they can't do that. And so if we can just do that one document between now and say tomorrow, because I don't think that would be too labor intensive, we can get that done.
Yeah, that's fine with me. And that's why I requested the city attorney to make it clear that when you all do the second reading in 2 weeks, it's not something we're going to be able to the next day, the next evening enforce. That's why I'm up here, and that's why I asked him to make it perfectly clear so we're on the record of knowing that, I need time to implement this. I'm working off of what your final draft is going to be. You all may read it. You may get feedback from the community over the next couple weeks once it is posted. And if we tweak it, then and the final version's out, then I'll start working on my policies and practices.
Right. I mean, in layman's terms, if we think about it, just when we approve constitutional amendments, right? Yeah, the voters approve it. It's not in practice the next day. It's usually until July of the next year before it actually goes into formal law. So I would say it's pretty similar. And you're saying it's going to be maybe give you credit 6 months before it's actually fully.
Yeah, I would say, we'll shoot for 4. I'm not going to make any promises on that because we do have some work. We're going to have to get the devices. We're going to have to know how to operate the devices. We're probably going to have the manufacturer come and train us, or the company that's going to certify them come and train us on the proper use of them. So we have a train-the-trainer process in place so that we can train our officers that need it. We're going to have to identify, are we going to train everybody? Are we only going to train certain officers? We still have some staff decisions once you all make the final version.
Good.
Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez? No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
If I can make a note just also for the record, one of the things that we added, and this is probably where we have a slight tweak from Orange County's noise ordinance, and this is something that we addressed because it could be a potential issue. And that's, I guess the most base example is property owner calls in a noise complaint for a loud party. Officers go make the reading at the receiving property. It exceeds the decibel levels. They go to the offending property. At that point, the person in charge of the property refuses to disclose their name, refuses to identify themselves, and is basically obstructive to the officer. We have provided that the initial citation will be issued to the property owner, And then at that point, the property owner does have the opportunity to file an affidavit. This is modeled after the red light camera statute, in which the property owner will file an affidavit stating, yes, I am the owner of the property, but this is the person who was in control of the property at that time. By effectuating that affidavit, it's a sworn statement that, it's basically practically, no, my tenant was doing that and I did not authorize them to do so. That would then enable the property owner to be absolved of any liability upon the filing of that affidavit, and further enforcement will be done against the tenant. I'm confident that that mechanism should withstand legal scrutiny. It's currently the standard for the statutory standard for red light cameras for offending properties. So that is one thing we're going to implement and experiment with to see as a way to be able to hold persons accountable for violations of the code in the event that they really become obstructive to our law enforcement officers.
So what happens in that case? It's a institutional owner of a rental property, and they don't respond ever.
Well, what you'll have is it's a civil citation against the property owner. If the property owner ignores it, then that civil citation becomes it's a fine, and it will become a judgment. And at that point, then you can enforce its enforcement of a judgment through the circuit court system. And you'll have a judgment upon them. A judgment then can become a lien as a judgment, or we can enforce the judgment. Chapter 162 allows for enforcement of judgments, similar as a private entity can enforce a judgment against somebody. So it's not a lien on the property per se, like code enforcement, because these aren't necessarily property-bound violations, and because it's a civil penalty route, it's one penalty, so it's not a fine per day like code enforcement. So once that fine is set, and if it's not paid, then you can go after enforcement. Similar to if you don't pay your speeding ticket, that's going to become a judgment against you that you can go after someone. So it'll be the same. If you don't pay your civil citation, your ticket, it becomes a judgment
But
against
use
you.
that institutional example. What do they care? I guess what enforcement do we have in that case? Because I know we have a lot of institutional owners of rental properties in this area.
We're down to the same. This is the mechanism we have, just like any other type of judgment against. I mean, if they refuse to move forward, I mean, again, we can enforce a judgment. We can seek the judgment to become a lien on a property. If we move forward to potential foreclosure based on a judgment, or get a writ of a writ to enforce a judgment, there are many mechanisms that we can use through the civil court system to enforce the fine once it becomes a judgment. In some respects, you're also looking at potential civil contempt of court. There's a myriad of enforcement options, because at that point we're basically enforcing a judgment.
I think that's one of our. It's going to get messy on that. Just looking at it now, but other than that, no other questions.
Just one question. What if you have a resident that's a chronic, violates the noise ordinance, and where do you consider it chronic?
No, there are mechanisms in the ordinance
Right.
where first offense is one amount, repeated offenses, the amount of fines continue. So the
Okay.
ordinance does provide for basically repeat offenders.
Okay.
And I think if I recall, if even the ordinance provides, and this is consistent with Orange County, if an officer goes and gives a verbal warning, that warning is effective for, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 6 months. And if an officer has to go back to a property that had received a prior warning, the offender automatically gets the heightened fine as if it were a repeat violation.
Okay.
So you get one warning, and your warning is good for 6 months.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Anybody from public wish to speak?
Mr. Becker.
Rogers back at 7 West Main Street. So I just want to make sure I understand the process. The police officers come out to the site. They don't issue the ticket to the person. Now the property owner gets the notice. Is that a 14-day notice, 21-day notice, 30-day? What is the exactly time frame for that to happen? Because someone like myself that have property managers, there is a chain of command that things go through, and then I get it, let's say 14 days you gave me and I don't get it until 21, and these fines start, like, how does that actually affect me as a property owner? So is there been any discussion on that ordinance on exactly the timeframe on how this play out?
Usually timeframes for appealing or contesting the citation that are provided on the actual civil citation. And I think the language in the ordinance is that there'll have to be some type of action within the timeframe provided for in the citation.
It says 30 days.
But and so you have as the property owner, you have the right to say that it's not, you don't live there and you have to sign that, you don't live there and that it's a tenant and that then the fine would be transferred then to the tenant and not to you as the landlord.
I'm just trying to figure it out because ultimately, some of the tenants, I don't even know who they are, right?
What's that?
Some of my tenants, I don't know who they are. So I'm just trying to figure out ultimately how it's going to affect me. If, for example, a lot of times the property manager is going to send a letter, what the case may be. So I'm just trying to figure out ultimately if I'm the property owner, how is it going to affect me because I did not cause a problem? Basically what I'm getting at. So
Correct. In the event, practically speaking, if you've got a tenant, the tenant refuses to cooperate and the officer cannot readily cite the tenant at that time, then the citation will be sent to the property owner. The property owner has a certain amount of time to state, look, I was not under control of the property. This is who my tenant is, and then filing the requisite affidavits naming the tenant. And at that point, the tenant becomes legally liable for the violation, not the owner.
So there's no recourse. Basically, if I understand correctly, police officers go out to the site and a person refuses to give their ID. Is that how this works? That the citation ends up back to the property owner? Because I'm just trying to, if you're giving a citation, it seems like it should go to that person. But now it's attaching to the property. That's just what I'm trying to figure out. And I thought it was the reason why you went to the citation versus just a general code enforcement type of situation. If I thought initially when you guys originally started to talk about this, it was to try to circumvent going to code enforcement for this particular reason, that you gave them the citation to keep me out of the situation, is basically what I'm saying. So just give more consideration to that. But if that's the way it's going to be handled, I understand that, but just give that to consideration. Thank you.
And to that end, certainly something to consider, but that's the scenario where the person refuses to provide identification. Otherwise, it will be issued to the person who does give identification.
If the tenant can be readily cited, then the first preference is to cite the tenant, or cite, I don't want to say the tenant, to cite the person who's in custody or control of the property, because it could be a subtenant. But also along those lines, and the reason why we've added the factor of if there is such an issue where we can still try to achieve enforcement by notifying the property owner. The property owner is ultimately responsible for what goes on their property. Then that would be any issues there could be between the property owner and the tenant addressed through their lease or however other mechanisms the property owner wants to go after the tenant for any types of violations of ordinance. But this is an added mechanism that would allow for enforcement or allow for accountability in a way that, if it's such the case, we can actually have the property owners assist us in trying to remedy the situation or remedy the recourse on their properties, especially if the property they own, which they are ultimately responsible for, is an habitual source of noise violations. And this is a way we can kind of respond to the public and address their concerns of properties that could become habitual noise issues.
And there is an appeals process to this too. So not only do you have 30 days, but then you can appeal it, goes to special magistrate, things like that. So I think again, this process needs to be delicate as we move forward and establish it for these specific scenarios, is that how we're putting out notices, things like that, the violations, we just need to be delicate as we move forward because there are certain property rights that I don't want to infringe on, but also we need to make sure that other property rights aren't being infringed on as well. So
I believe as drafted, there are multiple constitutional guardrails in the language of the ordinance that will honor and respect persons' private property rights.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody from the public? Come on down.
Daryl Richardson here. I'm on Rockford Road. I've been listening to this, and a couple of things come to mind being a brewery owner, right? I mean, is this going to impact downtown if we have loud music coming out of our establishment? Somebody complains. Is that part of it? Is that an exclusionary thing?
The important note is that the violations that are addressed are for noise that exceeds the code levels, and that noise is received in residentially zoned properties. Now, there are certain exceptions, go through that, as well as there being variances that can be sought. There's a mechanism to come before the Development Review Committee. If you're a private business and you believe that perhaps you're going to have an event, a special event that may cause a problem, there is a mechanism to come before the city to ask for a variance to allow the event to go forward. And then you'll have prescribed, okay, the event can go from this time to this time. Perhaps there's some noise cancellation or buffer. I'm kind of speaking just examples. There are noise buffering things that can be done, or certain things that can be placed in such a way to minimize the noise impacts. But then there'll be an exemption for, at least during this time, there will be certain exemptions. Now,
But he's in
because it's-
commercial, but he's in commercial.
Right, he's in commercial, but if the noise
Yeah, but there's
is
houses
received
behind
in
it, like,
residential,
technically,
and the
probably,
noise
yeah.
at the receiving property exceeds.
Okay.
So, I mean, the standard is a weekend event. If a property owner calls in that it's 11 p.m. and they hear noise, if an officer goes to the property and can kind of hear the music, but if the music doesn't exceed 55 decibels, you're not in violation.
Yeah.
So that's the key
Exactly.
threshold, and it's not. And I did not want to get into that subject matter of readily, I keep wanting to say readily available. What I meant is like audibly, it can be audibly heard, because then it opens up the threshold for certain subjective. Is someone likes the music and they can hear it, they don't think there's a violation. The neighbor hates the music and will call you in. And then it becomes subjective, as opposed to if I like the music or I hate the music, but if it's under 55 decibels, you're not in violation.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that property owners can do to try to limit the noise level so you fall below that decibel threshold.
Sure.
So it's not just that it can be heard, it has to be heard and exceed the levels that the code provides.
Do you know how many noise citations were issued in Orange County last year?
No, I do not have that amount.
And do you know if
available.
all of the officers carry around decibel meters?
I do not. I don't have the information regarding what the
So these meters
Orange
cost
County.
between $2,500 and $5,000 a piece, and they're still not reliable, right? I've been in audio for a long time. You're also taking away the time for officers to respond to a noise complaint 15, 20 minutes from then, right? Which may or may not even be happening. Spending a ton of money on training, you're also taking away resources for some other issues that are more pressing, right? I mean, these kind of ordinances are muddying the water in our city governments, and quite frankly, do not ever produce a result, right? You're always going to hear people complain and bitch about noise, okay? It's just like you said, you either like the music or you don't like the music, right? You either don't like the hammering or whatever. Now, I mean, that situation could be easily remedied by, putting in some kind of stipulation in the building permit or something. Do not build or make this noise after 10 o'clock. You don't have to spend all this money on training and putting our officers in harm's way potentially for a loud stereo, right? This is pointless money. And the city has a lot bigger things, from what I've heard tonight, a lot bigger things to worry about than a noise ordinance. So that's all I got to say. But thank you for that clarification. Thanks.
Anybody else from the public want to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. We'll look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2988 at first reading and hold over for second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta,
Second.
second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, budget amendment.
Okay.
Lance Sherman.
Resolution number 2022-55. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2022, or 2023, I'm sorry, providing for a budget amendment.
Alrighty. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The item before you tonight is approval of the resolution number 2022-55 for FY 22-23 budget amendment. This budget amendment formally incorporates items that have been brought to you before on December 7th, 2022, and December 21st, 2022 tonight. Item number 1, as listed in the budget amendment item, it's funds coming from the general fund reserves in the amount of $36,834. That is for the Apopka Museum renovation assessment. Item number 2, funds coming from the utility operating fund reserves in the amount of $399,300. That is for the purchase of land and equipment for Snowden Road. That item was brought to you tonight for approval. Items number 3 and 4 and 5 are funds that we received from FDOT safety grants. Those items were brought to you at the last meeting, December 7th, 2022, in the amount of $12,000 for impaired driving, $26,000 for distracted driving, $49,000 for speeding and aggressive driving grants. The other items that were brought to you tonight for our COVID-19 American Rescue Plan funds in the amount of $450,000 for city's LED lighting conversion project, $250,000 for the Fran Carlton restoration project, $250,000 for the City Hall area grounding and lightning suppression project, $200,000 for the 8th Street stormwater piping and playground project, and $15,000 for support of reimagined communities in the amount of a total amount for the COVID-19 fundings of $1,165,000. The last item, number 7, coming from the Transportation Impact Fee Reserve Fund, is $59,400 for the purchase of land for the future extension of Peterson Road right-of-way acquisition. The total amount of the resolution is $1,747,534.
Any questions for Blanche?
Just one quick one. Any of these, when will these be dispersed? When will these funds be dispersed?
That, of course, depends on the projects. The funds will be added to the project budget so that they can begin the process of procuring those items and moving forward with the projects.
Let's use Reimagine Communities as an example.
The donation.
When will that be tomorrow, next week? What's that look like?
Commissioner, as soon as we post a budget amendment and request documentation, supporting documentation for this item, we will release that check for those funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve Resolution 2022-55.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith, a second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, City Council reports. Commissioner Velasquez.
All right, well, today was a very busy day here. The only thing I will ask is that we do move forward with the safety committee for the fire department, and that we don't lose sight of what's the purpose and its mission is, and that is to find out, to improve our operations, and certainly to give the priority to the firefighter that we did lose, and that would be Mr. Austin Duran. So on that note, that's the only thing that I will say in regards to that, and I understand that there is a litigation, and we're limited to what we can discuss, but it doesn't change how our safety committee should be moving forward with that. With that, other than that, we've had a busy 2 weeks with a lot of different events in the city. We had the Apopka Christmas Parade, which we all participated in, and that was very festive. Then we had the Apopka Museum, which the president, Maribel Brinkley, does an excellent job in creating a sort of a nutcracker Christmas, and it was beautiful. And then we had, of course, the shop with the cop for the 10 days. I participated in the first day, and I participated in the last day. And it's always, very meaningful what Christmas is really about. And it's about, sharing joy and making sure that our local families and the students that, are in our schools do have a Christmas. And then just recently, we did the Wreaths Across America, which is something that I'm always very proud of, that we have participated in the last couple of years for the veterans that do lay in state in our cemetery. And then Saturday Sounds, it was, we went, it was a little chilly. It wasn't well attended, but still, I'm always happy to see that when the bands and the live music come, they'll play for 2 people the same way they'll play for a full stadium. And it was a very nice concert. And I just hope that when the new year comes, that we can try and market Saturday Sounds so that we can get more participation from our community.
Okay, Mr. Becker.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping the only thing that I have to address is pretty perfunctory at this point. But the last meeting, I talked about economic development, perfunctory in the sense that the minutes that we approved tonight alluded to the fact that the majority of the commissioners wanted to hear further on this topic. So I'm hoping that we can take formal action because I haven't gotten proper procedure on how to get this added to our agenda. But I would assume that an act of council to say that we can put this on a formal agenda for formal decisioning it should be at least afforded to me. So what I would ask the council is, I'm targeting the January 18th, which is the night meeting within January, to present the topic of economic development as discussed during the city council report's last meeting. And I will take into account in that presentation the feedback that I received from this board when it was discussed last meeting. But I would personally make a motion that we agree as a council to put it on the January 18th city council agenda for contemplation by this council. So with that,
For discussion or for?
for formal action.
If I can just ask for clarification, as we've done in the past, when any member of this council wishes to direct staff to bring something back for approval or for action on the part of the city council. And I mean, the most recent example is Commissioner Becker, you wanted to address the dollar store issue. And what I advised was, well, during your council presentation moment, you would get the consensus, and then the council can then direct staff to bring us back. So just for clarification, do you want us to bring back an ordinance? Do you want us to bring back? So it's clear, so we know what we can bring back for proper
My
discussion.
challenge here is I can sit there and direct staff, but staff is reporting to the mayor who's against this concept, at least based off his own words in the last meeting. So what I'm asking or proposing is just the formation of a department, which is kind of a clerical or administrative task in terms of how our budget and financials are organized, and the budget of a particular role within that department. And so I don't know that I need staff necessarily to guide me through that venture. I just want time on the agenda to present my presentation in a formal capacity to say, this should be the direction that we take as a council. So again, I've had interactions with Mr. Bass. It's, the last communication I sent a few days ago has gone unanswered in terms of policy and procedure. So all that I can find myself is this council, by an act, we have the authority to set the agenda if we so choose. That's our right as this board. And so I asked to have it enumerated in the last meeting. It was not met. So I'm not going to go another meeting saying that there's friction to me be able to do this. And so I'm asking this board to make a formal action just to put it on the agenda. If I'm happy to work with staff prior to that meeting to say, hey, here's my thinking, this is what I'm going to propose. Is this how it needs to be done? Happy to have that conversation. But I refuse to have this as a staff-led initiative when, again, the words of the administration is there's not support there.
No, and I'm not contesting. I just want clarity. I need to know what the finished product is that will be presented to determine whether is it an action item? Is it a public? Are you asking for a public hearing for an ordinance or a public hearing for resolution? That's the practical. I mean, and that is something we can work on together.
Yeah,
in order to know what.
I outlined it in my presentation in the last meeting. So if you remember on the last slide that I presented, there was 3 steps. The first step is I'm asking for the formation of an economic development department, and that department to be funded with SLFRF funds. The amount that I thought was still left over from unallocated initiatives was 300. It's 200 based off of our conversation on Monday. So that revision will take place. And then the second ask there was the actual creation of an economic development director role. And so those are the 2 things that I will be asking for. I just want to be able to do that in a formal capacity for action.
Okay.
Because again, this community deserves for us to consider this. I mean, I've had it as a platform issue ever since I've run for this office. And you know, in all fairness to the mayor ran on a platform that he's the one that does it, and he feels like he's successful. I think it's time that this board looks at this piece of business and says, for once and for all, what do we want to do? Because that allows me to say, okay, I understand the will of this committee or this board, and we can go forth and start tackling other issues.
Okay, I mean, if we have the consensus of the council, and we have your direction, I mean, staff's going to be preparing and all the. I mean, I don't expect you to sit there and draft everything for adoption. That's where your staff is here to make that presentation. I just wanted to clarify what exactly it is that you want, so that if we have the board consensus to bring that, then we'll bring it forward and place it in its proper location in the agenda. That's what I was getting at.
Again, we could argue this point all day long. I guess from my point of view, I'm making a motion to this board to either approve or not approve my desire to present a formal ask of council based off the parameters I just set forth. I have reservations that if it's a staff-led initiative, it's going to be biased to a decision where it's not a full staff recommendation. Because a lot of these things that we consider on our business agendas usually have some sort of staff recommendation or not. And again, this is something that I want to bring forward for a decision of this board. I don't understand how staff has to be involved in the process.
Well, okay, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I need to know what to do. And I mean, staff can either provide no recommendation or that there be no recommendation, or this is
here. We're having a little bit of miscommunication. It seems like,
Yes.
Is your goal to have, are you going to present and you have the data and the facts and you want to present that?
Yes.
Okay. And then at that meeting as well, you want to have, I guess, our approval or ask of, we want to allocate $200,000 to fund this department with a director. That's going to be the ask.
Correct. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of nuance to
Yeah.
that presentation, but yes, simply put,
So
yes, that's
correct. And what I'm trying to clarify is
However that looks on an agenda.
right, and that's why it staff.
We're overcomplicating this. I
Well,
don't
no, I
understand how staff has to be involved in this ask. Again, I'm not going to be asking anything that I know would be out of bounds of what legally we could do. We're creating a department within our financial cost structure that would house a budget, and we're asking for a position to staff that department, position or position.
So it's going to be a business action item, is what it's going to be.
No, I guess what I'm trying to clarify is that when it's presented as a business action item, will the vote implement it, or will the vote at that time be, okay, we have voted, now staff, go out and write this? That's the steps I'm trying to.
There's nothing to write. We're creating a department within our financial organization, the finance organization.
Right, we would have to draft the policies and implement that. That's why I'm saying if you're requesting us to implement that for staff to go forward and do what we need to do to implement your desire is one thing, or is the final vote is here it is, this is what it's going to be, and we're going to vote to implement.
So again, I hearken back to the presentation I made last week. So apparently, not all of us were looking at it. There was 3 things that were outlined. One was the creation of a department so that we could park a budget within that department. Second was the creation of a director. That's not the full amount, because that was a misconception last meeting, is that all $300,000 or $200,000 is going to one person. It's not. That's not the intent. but the creation of the role was secondary. The third part of that, if people remember, is it's a joint kind of conversation. Once we get past the idea that this is of value and that we need to budget for it, it's to come and say, okay, what does this need to look like? What's our long-term strategy here? You know, what policies and procedures need to come up based off of that strategy, et cetera. Now, some of that I'm gonna have a point of view with when I present. But again, just like we did with the ordinance around noise, not all of that is gonna be known as soon as we take a vote. There's gonna be some things that, there's some puts and takes that will come after that. But for us to park budget into a department that I feel, and I will come with compelling evidence, in my opinion, that is justified for that low budget amount with money that's not coming from our taxpayers, i.e. SLFRF funds, that's the business case that I'm trying to present in that meeting.
Well, it will be coming from taxes the next year. I mean, I don't know why we can't wait and put it into
What are we waiting for?
budget for next year.
I've asked, I know your opinion on this one, Mayor, but I'm asking this board, let's have the board decide whether or not
Well-
it's sufficient enough for me to even put it to a business case. Let me present why I think it's of value outside of a campaign speak and rhetoric and people attacking things based off of anecdotes. Let me put data and prove my business case. I don't know why you're so opposed to it.
I'm not saying I'm opposed. I said, let's bring it up.
At every turn you are. We were saying, wait. That's the story of this administration. Oh, we're gonna get there. It's always future tense. We have real issues, real requirements of the residents that live in our city today. This is a proven expenditure. It's proven in other cities. And I want my time at that lectern or on this seat to present why I think it's of value for this city.
And I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have that opportunity. I just think that we're not halfway through a budget year, but why can't we wait until the next budget cycle when we go?
Why did we expend SLRF funds tonight? Why did we expend those funds tonight? Why didn't we wait for budget year next year? We're going to do Frank Carlton. How come we're doing that right now versus next year?
It's a capital expense. And what you're talking about is not a capital, it's an operating expense. But
So justify the importance between a CapEx and OpEx in terms of your comments.
I think that's.
I would like to hear why a CapEx is more important than an OpEx at this point. OpEx could lead to funds that go to fuel our CapEx, our capital improvement plan,
Okay.
instead of relying on SLRF funds. Or how do you plan to pay for the recreational upgrades that you keep on asking our public to do survey results for when you've asked them 3 times already with no plan to actually make the improvements that they're asking for?
We're going to wait.
Where's the plan?
We don't
Produce
have
the
a
plan. You always talk about plans or doing it sometime in the future. Produce the plan.
Well, as soon as we get the loan paid off, we will, along with the
Oh,
loan.
now it's predicated on a loan being paid off. Does the public know this? Do they know kind of the order of operation of how we're going to invest in our city? Then playing this role of we're a victim and we're rubbing nickels together, as you say, or doing things on the cheap. We're beyond that. With that said, I renew my motion that I can personally present the business case for creating a economic development department and director and ask that we work collaboratively as this council to come up with economic development strategy within the city and how that position would actually operate and support our strategies here in the city of Apopka. And hopefully I can get a second.
Yeah, does it take a formal motion? I mean, we all just agree to this. This is,
Well, at this point, we've done this in the past as a motion because it's not really, it's an action item. You're taking a vote to place something on the agenda. So it's not really an action item or you're not really providing or approving any legislation. But I would want to have the consensus of the council done by motion, second, and a vote to then direct that at that point. I mean, you're directing staff to put it on the agenda. So that's the direction we at least on behalf of staff, I would like to see to know what it is that you want on the agenda, how we're going to word it on the agenda, and if there's anything that we need to assist you in drafting to have the matter on the agenda. So I would prefer and I would advise that it's best that we have a motion, you have a second, and you have a vote on it. Then we have that staff has that consensus to assist you in providing the item on the agenda.
okay.
You have my full commitment that I will work with staff to understand what I'm going to be presenting. It will be readily available for everybody within this board to contemplate that information because I don't want them to hear it the first time I'm at that lectern. Otherwise, and again, Mr. Bass and I had this conversation on Monday. I mentioned that I hadn't gotten formal policy or statute back of how we get things on the agenda. I asked if you wanted me to do a formal vote within this time during city council reports. The answer was affirmative. That's what I'm doing right now. That's it.
So you motion it. The only ask that I have, and just to reiterate kind of what I said last week too, just if you can make sure, because we can't talk about this until you make the presentation basically, is just make sure you're defining how the value is being created through this department. I want to see that it's basically self-funded. Figure out how that value, I don't just want it to be intangible. Personally, I want it to be tangible. How are they creating value? If you can, just make sure that's a key point in your presentation. That is going to be a big one for me. So I will second it.
And with that, though, we also have, the $200,000, we still have that, that's where you want to spend it then. I mean, that's.
We're not making that decision. All we're deciding right now is whether or not I can present it to council.
Yeah, that's the ask. And then I think the ask on the 18th would be, are we now earmarking and going to apply these 200,000 towards that? And I think, again, for me personally, and just before we even get to that presentation, before I see it, unfortunately, it's, will the 200,000 make us 400,000? Will the 200,000 make us 50,000? I want to see if we can use some direct dollars from local municipalities that do have this in place to see how it translates. I think that's it. I think we just want to see, I want to see it tangibly. And that's it. So I don't think this vote is to spend that 200,000 right now. It's to give us the opportunity to discuss how to spend that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Got a motion by Commissioner
Motion
Becker, second by Commissioner Nesta. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Commissioner Smith.
Oh, and just to end my comments, obviously, happy holidays. We won't see each other until January. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy fourth night of Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa on the 26th. And whatever holiday that I'm missing that others appreciate and celebrate, I wish you happy holidays and a very happy new year.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. First of all, today we had the homegoing service for one of our pastors in our community, Reverend Michael D. Warren, who's a great asset to our community. And so it's a great loss. And so we continue to keep the Pleasant View Baptist Church in our prayers. I also attended the Wreaths Across America and the Nutcracker Christmas at the museum as well. A very, very outstanding event, and also attended the Shop for a Cop. I would like to have an update on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, if you have one of those available, as to what they're planning, what they're doing this time.
We'll have you on for the next meeting.
Okay. And the
Can
other
you make
question-
sure that we all get that update, not just Commissioner Smith?
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, and also an updated list of all the members.
Also, do we have anything in the city as far as rental assistance? I've received several emails from individuals that are in need of some rental assistance. And so I knew the county did. I didn't know if the city does.
We don't, but the county, I think they had to turn back money. I mean, don't hold me to this number, but I want to say they had to send back $20 million in rental assistance money that was, don't hold me to that number, but I know they have rental assistance money.
Okay. Also, and I still like for us to look at workforce housing for our city. Individuals are constantly being displaced because of the fact that rentals are out of control and there is no workforce housing that they can afford to be in. So another thing we like to look at as a city.
Okay.
And then, of course, we need to address our homeless population. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nesta.
Short list, but just some details. The Clearwater Lake meeting January 5th.
Yes.
Is that going to be more so I'm asking, hopefully this is it. It's going to be kind of a detailed, we have the dollars, sort of, we have the plan. Here's kind of how we're going to implement it. Here's our expectations of timelines.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's offsetting revenue, not revenue, the savings from the reclaimed water, but paying for the system to be put into the, till we take water out of the lake. We also want to show you what that will do to the water levels based on some
Projections.
Yeah, it's not,
Sure.
it's not, 100% accurate, but yeah, so we should have some pretty good, hard, solid numbers.
Like, and with timelines built in and all that?
I don't know about timelines. I know we're still working with Hunter right now, or the distributor for Hunter that's got the, looking at how to design the system. So,
Sure.
yeah, so
I know that that meeting, the residents are getting less patient.
Yeah.
So at that meeting, my ask is if we
Yeah.
can put some commitment, give me 6 months, 3 months,
Right.
whatever it is, the shorter the better,
Yes.
obviously. But let us end that meeting with here's the action, here's the timeline. Hopefully we beat it.
Yeah.
So, okay, good. Just want to make sure kind of my
Yep.
expectations and the residents as well. South Apopka annexation talks. We don't have anything on the books of kind of next.
we're working on reached out to the county, to Chris Testerman, who's retiring at the end of the month. I've got another person I need to contact about getting the Bridges Center for a South Apopka community meeting. Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. And do we have timelines on that?
I'm hoping the first, if not the second week of January, we'll have a meeting there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing on this is just, I'm kind of just to the public. I have a lot of goals and initiatives coming for 2023. I'm going to have some proposed ordinances, policies, some resolutions, some really cool stuff kind of coming Q1 that I'm excited about. Just need to get a little more foundational information. So excited for that and be on the lookout for that. And then the last one is I've been getting a lot of compliments, which I'm very appreciative of just being very prepared for these meetings and digging in deep, and also just kind of showing up to different events often. And I was going to say, I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have my teammate at home taking care of my house. Sorry, she's just awesome. We've had a really good year, and it's just been nice to have such a great teammate. So I just wanted to audibly say that she's just been incredible to work with and patient with me as I've been serving the public. So thank you, public, for letting me serve you in this capacity, and thank you, Lauren, for being my great teammate. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Next up, Edward.
I have nothing, Mayor. I wish everybody a happy holiday.
Okay. Michael.
I have nothing to add, and I won't rub in what happened last Saturday.
Yes, his team beat my team, and so I've got to pay off my bet. So anyway, just got a couple of things. I want to just address some of the issues about the press conference I had. A couple of things maybe they were in my little press conference briefing, but I want to just kind of reiterate some of those. We talk about the investigation of the Austin Duran accident, and I just want you to know that, in my comments, I said, let's see here, on September, okay, where is it? NOSHA, okay. On Monday, August 22nd, at our request, not required, we asked them to do it. The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSHA, began its independent investigation of the accident. Over 40% of all the deaths within the United States they contract with NOSHA to look at those accidents. So we asked them to come in and do the investigation. So that's what they do for a living. That's what they do, is they look at situations. They try to determine what the cause of the accident was. So we are looking at the accident, the Austin Duran accident. A couple other things I just want to make sure, we did have 2 firefighters that resigned. I just want to read you from firefighter Escovari.
I just feel like you did mention one thing that I thought
It's my
didn't
report.
apply.
My report.
Yeah, but I'd rather that you don't read why he resigned,
Why?
because you already said it. You said it was family matters.
Yes.
And then the other one with Cap Klepper, you made some reference to his employment before he was employed with our fire department, which I thought was insignificant. It
Okay,
almost discredited
Firefighter
him.
Escovari was not in attendance at that meeting, and since the accident has missed 3 of the 5 safety committee meetings and resigned on December 14th, 2022, because, I quote, "It was going to be an added task that would take more of my time away from my family."
Okay.
Okay. Then on December 10th, Lieutenant Alex Klepper resigned from the Safety Committee rather than stay on to make positive changes. We have over 50 positive changes that we've made at the fire department. And what's interesting is that in October, he was informed about whether to talk about the incident or not. But it wasn't until 2 months later that he resigned from the committee. So why not, if it's that bad, if that determined that you wanted to be off the committee, why didn't you do it in October?
Well, he's not here
The
to
last thing he
answer that.
said, he
I
He's
don't know
not
why we
here.
don't talk about this when we were talking about it before. Why are we
Yeah,
waiting to
so-
the end of the meeting? Like,
So
where
so
was
of
this
these
exchanging
22
of fact?
These
before?
22 recommendations, we've completed 18 of them. 4 are left to complete of the ones that he's asked us to complete. So I wonder, the last 2 verified uses of that trailer were Chief Carnesali and District Chief Bankston. So we ought to ask them why they didn't ask to take that trailer out of service.
Well, that's not up to us. That's up to the,
So anyway, so going on, we'll talk about Reefs Across America, great event, man. It's probably the biggest
If I
crowd we've
can just
ever
talk
had.
about, it's a small thing, just my ask, and I think it's there, it goes back to just communication in general. I didn't know that we accomplished 18 of those 22. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's here.
yeah.
But I didn't know that.
either. I didn't know it till today.
So I think just communicating more effectively, I think that, again, more information that helps everybody. So I think that would help the safety committee understand that that's happening. Maybe they already know it. I don't know whether or not, but I didn't. And again, information just helps us all.
Sure.
So I just think that it lessens the tension. So again, just the ask is tell us more, not less.
So Reefs Across America, great event, largest crowd we've ever had. Although we didn't win the state championship in football against Michael's team, we did come in second, which is 3 out of the last 4 years we've been at the state championship. So it's an amazing accomplishment for our Apopka high school football team. Clear Lake meeting we brought up January 5th. And the last thing I'd like to bring up, it's in the budget. If the Congress passes it, we have a $2.5 million in the budget to replace the asbestos cement and galvanized drinking water pipes within the city of Apopka. So if it makes it through Congress, we'll have $2.5 million to replace the asbestos pipes and some of the galvanized drinking water. So with that,